Let's see if that worked. There we go. Now it's working. I must have put in the old stream key by accident. Alright, I think we're live now. So I'll just wait for some people to funnel in and see if they can actually hear us.
Oh my god, that face. The face.
I love it. I finally took your advice. So when I remodeled the channel, I'm just going to make it a little more human. No viewers, though.
I'm gonna post it everywhere.
Yeah. Usually there's at least one viewer, like, within 10 seconds, but I got 0 viewers so far, so it's, there we go. Here comes some people.
So suddenly people decided to, actually celebrate Easter. It's like, been a few hundred years, no one gave a shit, and now suddenly everyone is like, yeah, Easter, that's great. Let's go with that.
It's a good holiday.
Good holiday.
Alrighty, we getting some people coming in. So I'll wait about a minute or two until we have, hopefully between 15 to 20 people.
Yeah.
And I think the highest we've ever had is like 50 or 60 people, which, it's low.
No, there was
YouTube
that one
standards,
time.
but...
No, there was actually that one time. I don't remember which stream it was, but we actually did reach 100.
We did? I don't remember that. We've got to 100.
Yeah, we did get 100 once.
Cool. Maybe it can get to 100 viewers today.
I think the reason, there was multiple reasons why. I think we picked a really good time slot. And then also, I don't quite remember what it was. I think, what was it again? I think it was around I don't remember. I think there was I don't remember. I think there was a faction release, a faction release around the time as well. So
probably Labrina.
Yeah,
Fairies.
I think
Labrina and the Fairies, probably.
I think it was Labrina. And then the second best stream is then when we did the announcement of the reboot, I guess, right?
Right. That was a year ago.
Yeah, that was a pretty big stream as well. I remember it didn't. It was around 70, I think, for a big majority of it. And we streamed for like, I don't know, 4 hours, 5 hours. That was pretty long.
I think that was just over. That might have been the last stream you and I did, actually, like over a year ago.
Might be, yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna be an asshole, and I'm gonna just tag the Discord.
Yeah, add everyone. Yeah, I only got 5 viewers.
Yeah,
I also like to wait around a few minutes just in case my internet goes haywire, because normally, like, within the first 10 minutes of starting a live stream, my internet just goes bonkers, and then it kind of stabilizes. So yeah, I'll wait around a few more minutes before we begin, just to let people funnel in, and hopefully my internet to sort itself out. But so far, the internet's holding up.
Pray.
Pray, yeah. That'll be the real Easter miracle. Is my internet lasting 2 hours?
That would be amazing. I'm not sure if they always had that feature when in Discord, when you're in a pretty big server and you try to tag everyone, they gives you this huge warning. It's like you're tagging 500 people.
Yeah, it always gives me a warning. I rarely use it except when I post something in news, but anyway.
I'm the asshole that does it every time we do a stream. I do.
Apparently it was a good idea because the viewer count's starting to go up.
Yeah.
Every few seconds someone's coming in now.
The thing is, on your channel, I have notifications and everything, tagged on, but I didn't actually get the announcement for your stream on YouTube now. I don't know why.
Oh.
Sometimes people don't get it, and I think that's kind of, if you post something, it can get under the radar.
Yeah.
Which is why I always...
YouTube is a mess right now.
It really is. It really is.
Actually, I think it was like 2 months ago, the guy that's making the a Fox and Space cartoon, he was posting messages on my Star Fox stuff, and I was actually getting the notifications that he was messaging me, but when I'd go to respond to him, the comments were just gone. So YouTube's just completely deleting his comments on everything he posts for some reason. Like, YouTube is just a mess right now.
Yeah. Okay, so someone did get the notification. I mean, is it a normal work day in the US right now? What's up with you? Aren't you guys...
I actually don't know.
Aren't you guys supposed to be Christian or whatever? Like, what are you guys doing?
I mean, we are technically, but not exactly in practice.
That's so funny. Like, you have Norway, which is like incredibly secular, but they are adamant about all the Christian holidays. Like, no work. I mean, there's obviously some businesses open, but like regular retail and stuff like that, they're all closed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working tomorrow, so yeah, it's a normal work day, probably in America. But
Freaking weird.
I'm pretty sure most of my audience is European anyway.
Might be, yeah. But then
Yeah.
again, I think I underestimate how degenerate I was about to say the community is, because to me it's like, midnight on a weekend or on a holiday is not a big deal at all. But it seems like a lot of people are like, it's so late. I'm like, well, you can just sleep another hour. Like, it doesn't really matter. I don't know. Maybe I can't relate to having a healthy lifestyle.
Definitely on the east coast of the United States, people should be out of work now, but I'm on the west coast, and yeah, most people are probably still at work right now where I live.
Uh,
But yeah, I don't think we're gonna get higher than the
oh,
number of
EXO
viewers we have now.
EXO wants to join the stream.
Oh, he
He's told me
does.
that. Yeah, he sent you a message, I
He
think.
did. Oh yeah, he did send me a message. All right, well we'll invite EXO in too. Let me find out how to add him to the call. Where's add friends to DM? There we go. All right, I might actually cancel the call for a second. Oh no, it just brought him right in. Cool.
Well, that was unexpected.
Hello.
Yeah, the funny thing is, we planned this like
Yeah.
2 days ago. I probably should have told people beforehand, but
Well,
that's.
EXO's almost never on during the weekdays, so I figured he wouldn't be able to. But again, here he is.
I mean, these things are kind of scuffed by nature. It's a tradition at this point. By being all organized and having announced it the week before and stuff like that, that's not us.
Yeah.
It would be very out. Would it be very out of character? So we can't do that.
Well, I knew you had spoken about talking to Neff about the lore again.
Yeah,
so
we did actually do that a few times. Yeah,
Twice.
we did.
Two
Yeah, wow.
2 days. Wow. Yeah, making up for lost time.
That's a little scary almost.
Yeah,
Deox back in the game.
we're gonna do it for 3 days in a row, but Deox ended up playing Monster Hunter for like 8 hours and missed my message.
Yeah, it's not even a joke. So, but yeah, I'm on Easter break. Yes, that's why it's an Easter miracle. I came back from the dead.
Yeah, although sadly we'll probably lose you for another year. You'll show up next Easter.
Next Easter.
Yeah, you show up every Easter. Like you go a year without doing any lore stuff, and you just show up. Oh, I'm back for Easter, and we fix a bunch of Hyrule Conquest stuff.
Here's the thing, though. I know it's very me to disappear just suddenly, but I always come back. I'm like a boomerang, right? I do always come back.
I knew you would eventually, because it's happened before where you've disappeared for a long period of time. Although I think this is the longest time you disappeared.
Yeah. No, I do always try to come back when I have the time into it. The thing is, I told you this before, and I've talked about it on stream. When I get invested in something, I get super invested, and if I am invested in a particular thing, everything else in my life kind of suffers as a result, which means that I need to find like the right time. Like, okay, now I can actually go back to this particular thing because it won't affect my whatever I'm doing, research and work or whatever. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm the same way. Case in point, I've been making this stupid Zelda game for a decade, and it's destroyed my life. No, I'm just kidding. No. It hasn't destroyed my life, but it's definitely
just a little
closed
bit.
a lot of doors that would have been open otherwise if I wasn't working on it.
The funny thing is, just until I became, I wouldn't say I've been. How long have I been really affiliated with the project? Like 3 years, maybe? I don't even know. Yeah, 3 years?
I want to say it was very shortly after I started using Discord, which I think was 2017. So
yeah.
it was Yeah, and it was before EXO came along. So yeah, 2017. So
Oh, Jesus
17,
Christ.
18, 19, 20. 5 years now. Shit, wow. It's been
It
5
really
years since
doesn't.
I switched to Zero AD. That's crazy.
Yeah, you're right. It
Yeah,
really doesn't feel it.
I've almost spent more time working in Zero AD than Medieval 2. That is crazy.
It's
Really
crazy.
been that long?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it
been
has.
it's been almost 5 years since you showed up, EXO. I think in a few months it'll be
Uh,
5 years.
2017, somewhere halfway 2017, I believe.
No, I think you started doing things in
What's 20?
2018.
Oh, yeah, 2018. You
Like,
started in 2017.
yeah, I started the switch to Zero AD in August of technically July of 2017 is when I'm like, yeah, I'm done with Medieval. This sucks. I'm gonna find a new engine. And I'm like, oh yeah, Zero AD, and that's when I started
Yeah.
to switch.
I honestly, in my mind, it has not been that long. Like it
No,
feels.
it does not feel like it's been 5 years at all.
It baffles me when, like, yeah, actually, just the other day when we were talking about something, and I mentioned to you, like, oh yeah, I remember we talked about this last year, and then my mind is like, what? Was it last year?
Yeah,
The thing,
it's been almost 8 months since I last talked to you until the other day.
but the thing is, I don't, unlike you guys, probably you normal people, I don't have a perception of time.
No, I didn't. Honestly, it doesn't feel like it's been 8 months, almost eight
No,
months since I've talked to you. It feels like just like maybe a month or two since the last time I talked to you.
the funny
It's
thing is,
crazy how fast time is going by lately.
yeah, the funny thing is, I think just last week a friend like texted me on my phone, like actually texted me and said, "Hey, dude, what's up? Haven't been a while." And I'm like, "What? Oh, what do you mean? We talked recently. I'm good, by the way." And he's like, "Oh no, we haven't talked for 6 months." And I'm like, "What? No,
I
what do you
guess it's not
mean?
just me and EXO.
What do you mean 6 months? What do you mean?"
It's
So.
it's not a really a secret. It's hard to get in touch with you.
Mm. It
But
started once my computer started acting up. That's pretty much when it started. Because before I would have this routine. I would come home from work or university, and I would sit down on the computer, right? But I don't have that routine anymore. I kind of quit that. So if I'm going to go on Discord, I have to actively like go on Discord, which is it's much easier to be active online if you have the routine to get down to the computer. But when I told Neff the other day, I'm on the computer right now, and I'm not even lying. This was like the first time I've been on the computer for probably a month or more. And last time I was on the computer was to order fast food. That's literally all I did. I booted up my computer and I ordered Indian food, and then I logged off the computer. That was like a month and a half ago or something like that.
so
Alrighty.
so to get into the whole into the actual what let's just put it this way. What did you discuss? Did you consolidate anything, or
Oh
was
yeah.
it just catching up?
We
No.
figured out I mean there's some things we haven't discussed yet that we might when the live stream's over, but let's see, we very briefly discussed low roll today,
Yeah, that was
right before the stream.
right before the stream.
We discussed a lot of Silcaris stuff. What else did we
I guess we did the majority, like to make it game related specifically. We talked about the first act of the game, which
Yeah.
will be the
Lots
campaign.
of Aghanim stuff.
Yeah,
It was mostly Aghanim related stuff we kind of hammered out a little bit.
Yeah.
Stuff related to Raru and Impa. I don't know if I want to spoil, but yeah, I guess we should just start the live stream. We have 20 viewers. That's usually when I start. Hello everyone. I didn't even check. Can you guys actually hear us? I mean, just looking at the comments, I think people can hear us. But yeah, let me look through the comments and see what I missed. People commenting about Mipha's shark teeth. Yeah, yeah, she has shark teeth in the game she's from. Her and Sidon both have shark teeth, so I don't know why people are confused as to why she has shark teeth. Like they're like just type in Mipha art, like Mipha teeth, like teeth art, and there's people that have made tons of art with her and her shark teeth.
I mean, I think a lot of people like those teeth, if you know what I'm saying.
I mean,
Ah.
to me, her like creepy shark teeth is like the only endearing trait that character even has. Like,
Well, it's
like the only
unique.
character trait she has.
I think Exa likes her shark teeth. Sounds
Yeah,
like.
I have some indecent kinks and stuff, but shark teeth, I don't know.
But yeah, but I think mostly just going over stuff we kind of left in the air, and then also just refreshing. I have a pretty good memory. I'd like to think so, at least for certain things. But it was good for me just to have a refresher to get the gears going again. But also the thing is, for me, I think it's always the most interesting to talk about the early campaign, because I think obviously that's the most immediate, and due to the nature of the story after the reboot, like Neff said, he mentioned this when we talked the other day. It's all of it is a lot of it is self-contained with obvious threads between the different arcs, but that means that it doesn't really matter. Obviously, it's nice to get when the campaign gets there after all the factions and whatnot. It's nice to get as much as possibly done. But I think the new nature of the arcs make it so, let's say something were to happen, right, and we only get to finish maybe, let's say, 3 arcs. The story is self-contained enough that you can play through those 3 arcs, and you can get a very fulfilling story, right? You can get a very fulfilling experience, and I think that's why I kind of enjoy talking about those early arcs.
Apparently, people can hear you and Exo fine, but I'm really quiet. Do I sound loud now? Everyone in the audience?
Do you sound fine to me on Discord?
Well, my mic volume on OBS was halfway down, so I have a feeling it was. But everyone in the audience, can you hear me? Okay, yeah, they're all saying better now. Yeah, sorry, that was my fault. My volume was down. For everyone who couldn't hear me, I was basically saying that people were like, "Why does Mifa have shark teeth?" And I'm like, "She had shark teeth in the game she's from."
The thing is, she only has like maybe 10 minutes at most, if I'm being nice.
She has less than that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't blame people for missing that detail.
I mean, most people remember Sidon and his shark teeth, like her brother's shark teeth. I'm like that, and I was just saying, like, that's the only like character trait of her, like the only endearing character trait I even remember, because
the thing is,
she's such a non-character in that game.
The thing is, I think with Sidon, because you actually talk with him in the game and not in a cutscene, so a lot of people, they talked to Sidon, and then they went for a drink, and then they got back to the TV, and they just kept staring at him for like maybe a minute, and like, okay. Because you actually interact with him in the game, and not in a cutscene. So I don't know. Where was I? Yeah, what we talked about, the early arcs for me are the most interesting aspect, and also just the world building part of it. The thing is that I mentioned this in a stream we did, like when we announced the reboot and everything, is that everything is so much more coherent now, and it kind of shows, because I can be gone for, like Neff said, 8 months, and I can come back and I still remember pretty much everything, right?
You remember more than I do.
Yeah, but that says something about the setting, I feel, right? If it's built in such a way that you can easily just start remembering things. And keep in mind, guys, I haven't been actively working on this for a long time. Obviously, I think about it, but I haven't been writing or working anything out. So, I think it's great. It shows, I still think...
I do believe your work is more feedback related than anything else.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. The thing, and I also, I guess... I'm Neff's memory box, like the memory card, right? The PS2 memory card.
Well, it's I would call it coincidental, but I don't know if any of you are aware, but I've been talking a little bit with Iron Wolf lately, and he's been playing a lot of multiplayer again with people.
I did notice, yeah.
It was we had a bit of fun. I don't think we were streaming or anything, but I was trying to fix multiplayer with a few people because they were out of sync all the time, and I don't know really what's going on there, but it didn't seem to have any real influence, even though it said there was some out of sync issues. So we got to play a few games, and he said he was going to make a few new guides. I mean, obviously there are no promises, but I do feel that he's been that his let's just say that the posts he put out there are rather genuine. So I'm confident that he's going to actually make some new videos, which
Sweet.
he
The
said he's
nodes
going
were
to
a
make
good
them.
decision.
Well, he's going to make them even more accurate. He announced than before, and with the state that the game is in right now, he was really happy with it because he was complaining about battalions a lot in the beginning when it was
I
announced.
remember.
And, but he saw the screenshots, he saw the new playstyle. He said, "Well, this actually looks really good now. I really want to try it out." And so he played a lot, and I'm hoping for some additional feedback because our balancers are gone. So it would be nice to get some feedback on that again. And it's nice to see people playing multiplayer again. So
Yeah, that reminds me, for anyone in the audience who doesn't know, a new version of Hyrule Conquest came out like 2 years ago. So go to ModDB and download it. It's fun. It's apparently the most stable version we've had yet, and it has the best frame rates of any version we've released.
did you just say 2 years?
Huh?
Yeah, you did. 2 years ago.
2 years ago. It was
What
a little bit more recent than 2 years, maybe 2 months.
Sorry, 2 weeks. Sorry, 2 weeks ago. I did not mean to say 2 years. I mean 2 weeks. A new version came out 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm sure a new version came out 2 years ago also, but it's not new anymore.
Just hiding the good version for 2 years.
I think the battalions came out 2 years ago.
Oh, is it 2 years ago?
I think it was 2 years ago that the battalions came out. It was sometime in 2020.
Yeah, it's a long time ago now.
My God,
I know it doesn't feel like it's been 2 years. It's crazy. But no, two weeks ago we released a new version. So now all the node bases have been added in, and apparently just getting rid of workers has already dramatically improved the frame rate. Like, the day I released it, there was some nasty bugs, and then I released a hotfix and fixed those, and then almost immediately Codeman messaged me and was like, I can actually play on the Lost Woods map now. It doesn't lag anymore.
Well, we've discussed the size of maps for a long time. We've discussed trees, the number of trees and assets on the map, and we've removed workers. It was mentioned by Stan from Zero AD that they are working on improving gathering unit AI, but I mean, for us, it's not really that big a deal anymore.
Yeah.
Looking at the future, what is a big deal though
LODs.
is a few. Well, that and they have a few new settings. I'm really hoping they're gonna work out the unit AI a little bit more still in the future, especially in regard to attacking for formations, because the movement system is being fleshed out a lot more, which really helped the game or the modification. Because before that was atrocious. The modifications I made to the unit AI, which were more band-aid rather than a core fix, which always would have to originate from the Zero AD C++ code. But so I'm really happy that they went formation-centric movement. But yeah, I think now with LODs on the horizon, there are already basic LODs. And
yeah, I
right?
was their guinea pig. It works. It's awesome.
So I feel that with this, performance has increased significantly, and also gameplay has been, what's the word I'm looking for?
Streamlined?
Streamlined, yes. That's the word.
Streamlined like Mifa and Sidon.
Hydrodynamic.
It's a lot more straightforward. Once you get into a game, it's a lot more straightforward what you should be doing. You don't have to worry about gathering. You just have to worry about scouting and the units that you're making in the buildings. There's nothing more to it than that. It's rather straightforward gameplay, but you can still learn a lot of niches in the meta within that framework. So that is really neat, and there's a lot more planned. Actually, you are planning to work on the minor factions.
Yes, that is the first. I'm fixing a few small things with the existing factions. You might have noticed I've been doing something related to the Kokiri these last few days. But yes,
As is tradition.
Huh?
As is tradition.
As is tradition. But yes, the minor factions are the next thing that I'm adding in, which hopefully should get Ascaris excited, because that's what he wanted like a year ago, was for me to start working on those. I'm gonna probably get about 10 of them into the game.
So, are you planning on making a few more maps as well?
Yes.
Or...
Well, you already know I started working on a fourth one, but I haven't finished it.
I'm going to I believe I know for sure I'm gonna remain very critical of the map making. It's like you're very good at map making, so it's just about just making sure that the size isn't too big, because if it is, it's gonna reduce performance again. Still a big deal.
The size of all of the 2-player maps are the size. The current the 3 maps that I have in the game right now, the 2-player maps will never be bigger than that size. The 4-player ones will probably be the next size larger.
Yeah,
and
I think we could. You think we could get a 3-player map, or are you pining for 4-player maps now?
I could probably. I mean, I had one 3-player map in the old version on the Misery Mire. I could remake it with the node system. I'm kind of focused on the 2-player maps right now, because back in the day, I say that like it was forever ago, but most people want the 1v1 maps for some reason. And it's probably because the performance and the frame rates kind of tanks on the 4-player when there's 4 players at the moment.
No, that was in the past when, we still had gathering and stuff.
Yeah. Now I'm tempted to. Now that people seem to be saying the performance is much better, I'm tempted to start adding in the 2v2 maps again.
Yeah, I was thinking of playing. Yeah.
Huh?
People would be playing 2v2 maps in the current state of the mod. I believe that they would play 2v2 maps again.
With that in mind, then I might work on the Zora River and the Hyrule Field maps with the nodes and add those back in, because those were 4-player maps. So maybe I'll do those then. Before I do the minor factions, I'll have a little patch with some more maps.
I would take a very close look at what the size is now. I do believe that the size that the maps have now for 4 players might be a little too large. I think maybe not Zora River. I don't remember Zora River being that large. I think Hyrule Field was actually. I just had that feeling that Hyrule Field was a bit too large, in my opinion. But
by its nature, it's supposed to be big, but I don't know. Maybe it should be a 6-player map down the road then. But
so, was there a plan to make minor factions additions on maps? I can't remember if that was also the case, or is it just going to be a part of where you can attach minor factions to your main faction? Both. You're gonna do both.
Yeah.
Of course, you're gonna do both.
Of course, I'm gonna do both.
I mean, that makes the most sense. I feel it's not the easiest option, but it makes the most sense.
Yeah, a lot of people in the comments are saying that Hyrule Field had performance problems for them. Someone's actually someone's asking me about my Star Fox game, so I might make a little tangent there.
Go ahead.
I might take a little tangent, because I actually have some interesting news in relation to that after I answer this guy's question. He's asking if there will be a chance for a cockpit view. Yes, there eventually will be a cockpit view added to the game. By default, the engine it's in is actually first person. But I am eventually going to do cockpits for all the different fighter craft. But an interesting just last night, and for anyone interested in my Star Fox game, which is probably only like 5 people. So, but take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. I might be in contact soon with the original voice actress that did the voice for Crystal, and she might actually be doing voiceovers for my Star Fox game. So that would be really awesome. But take it with a grain of salt, because it might not happen. But it might. It might.
It does sound very cool.
But it's not Zelda.
It's not. It's
not Hyrule Conquest.
It sounds like I'm kind of the bad guy here because I don't really give a shit about your Star Fox
You're not
game.
alone. Most of the people here, probably most of the people on the Discord and my live stream don't give a shit about Star Fox at all.
I mean, yeah, Star Fox kind of died.
Yeah, Star Fox is kind of dead, sadly. So I don't know. I might have news about that. If that does happen, I'll try and do a live stream and have her on. And I don't know. She might actually do voice work for my Star Fox game. That'd be friggin' awesome. That'd be crazy. That'd be like the craziest thing that's happened in my life, probably. But
maybe we should get in Zelda's voice actress from Breath of the Wild.
I mean, she has the natural accent for it. She'd probably be a much better Princess Zelda. Yeah, let's sign a petition. Have Estelle Ellis voice the Zelda in the next game instead of what's her face.
Oh no, I think Exo is talking about someone else.
As going over my head. What?
I am talking about Zelda. British voice actor.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
No.
From Breath of the Wild.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. I'm saying the
Oh.
Estelle Ellis, she naturally has an English accent. I'm saying she would be much better playing that role than the actress that currently plays Zelda, who has a very fake accent.
No, but then you can make, as an introduction, you can make an animation where she picks up a frog.
Yeah, you can recreate that scene, right? With just better voice work.
Yeah, I feel bad for Patricia Somerset. There was an article, someone like interviewed her I want to say a year or two ago, where she was responding to like people like complaining about her terrible, her frankly kind of terrible job, and she's apologized and she's like, I'm sorry. She owned up to it, which that was kind of nice. She's like, I'm sorry, I'll try and do better next time.
No, but here, that's the thing. I mean, this kind of, I'm not gonna make this a huge tangent, but this kind of.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of started a tangent.
No, but I just want to make, because I see this a lot, right? And I know you know better, right? But most people don't. Voice actors rarely are the problem with their performance. It's the voice director, and they never get shit.
Yeah.
And this really bothers me because you have so many voice actors that you can look at their body of work, and there's a huge range of quality. And it's usually because the voice directing is terrible, right? And even within Nintendo, there's a huge gap of quality. If you take something like, let's say Fire Emblem, right? And then you compare it to Breath of the Wild, it's like night and day. It's not even... It's like two different companies. And it's because the voice director for a few of the Fire Emblem games, the newer ones, the older ones are crap, but the newer ones have really good voice work. It's because they are generally interested in directing. They're interested. They have like passion for voice acting, right?
Yeah.
In Breath of the Wild, it feels like an afterthought. I haven't really looked into the voice director for Breath of the Wild that much, but the voice actors in that game are, not the problem. Like, I've heard some of their other work. Sure, they're unknown, but unknown doesn't mean bad.
Well, yeah, I believe that because I've heard Patricia Somerset in other games, and she's fine. There was a Star Wars game that came out a year ago called Squadrons, which I played, and she voiced one of the TIE fighter pilots, and she's fine in that game. So yeah, whoever was like, do an English accent, that's the person who probably needs a slap. Although, knowing Fate, she probably was the one who was like, I'll do an English accent.
Yeah, but
the director was just like, okay, sure.
That's always the director's responsibility, though. If an actor has an idea of an interpretation of the role, and it's up to the director to say, no, that's a bad idea, don't do that, right? That's up to the director. If it's director's responsibility, right? It's sort of like... It's sort of like if you're thinking, as a boring example, like a retail job, right? One of the people on the floor do a mistake, but management never caught on to why they're doing the mistake.
Yeah.
That's the management's problem. It's their responsibility to make sure those things don't happen. And it's the same thing with the voice director.
But that was a bit of a tangent. That was just to say that Still
yeah.
Ellis might do some voice work for my Star Fox game, and that has me excited. I don't really know. I don't want to say like for certainty because I don't want to get all excited and then it doesn't happen. But yeah, I might be in contact with her pretty soon, so that'll be awesome if that does happen. And that was my weird way of answering someone's question about the cockpit in my game that no one cares about except for like 5 people.
I think. But that's the thing, though. If we can stay on that, because we have talked about this, voice acting in Hyrule Conquest, and I don't think personally, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have voice acting, and I'm sticking with the babbling. Yeah,
and I'm not one of those that say, Zelda and voice acting is the problem. No, it's more the fact that it's a very different vibe, and I think Hyrule Conquest has the vibe of the early '90s Zelda, right?
Definitely, especially Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, it doesn't need voice acting. It doesn't need voice acting. I think it would.
It would just be too much. There's just too much stuff in Hyrule Conquest. I'm already dreading the day I get to doing all the voice acting for my Star Fox game, which is a much smaller game in scale.
Yeah.
Like I'm already like I'm kind of dreading finding decent voice actors and yeah. I'm not doing it for Hyrule Conquest. There's gonna be no. I mean, if people want to, do grunts and babbling and stuff, I'm fine with that. But I'm not gonna have spoken dialogue at all. It's just too much. I would need like a whole team of people to help me with that. If I ever did that, that's not gonna happen for free.
Not worth. And again, you said you kind of want to finish this, right?
Yeah,
I want to see it finished.
I definitely want to see it finished in my lifetime.
Okay, so if we're just fast forwarding a few years.
Okay.
Okay, imagine a world wherein Neff has finished the factions and the minor factions. Like, how many factions are left? 2 or something?
I think there's like 10 left.
No, there's 2. Just say there's 2.
Okay, fine. There's 2.5. There, we'll compromise. 2.5 factions left.
You initially said 10. What 10 are you possibly thinking of?
The River Zora, Tetris Pirates.
Tetris Pirates? Do they matter?
The Guardians, which are the ones you're most interested in. Icona, which I almost removed actually. So maybe not Icona.
Well, you did say that you removed Icona, if I remember correctly.
I said I was considering it, because
you've already nerfed so many factions at this point.
What other ones do I still need to do? I'm already forgetting. I know there's the Rito, like the ones I'm looking forward to the most. The Rito. Okay, so there's 5, potentially 5 right there, and I think there's several more. But I'm drawing a blank. I guess I can just look it up. I have the list. Over
well, all of that expansion stuff, with the ships.
Oh yeah, the Tweely, duh. Like all my favorite ones are the ones I'm forgetting.
But wasn't that pushed way further ahead? Like
no, I'm doing all the factions first before I do I'm kind of confused on what you mean actually. Hello? Did my internet die?
No, we're just waiting for your report.
No, I'm confused on what your question. I'm confused about your question about the Tweely.
So I where is this conversation leading? Because I thought Exo was saying, okay, so let's say in a few years you have 2 factions left to finish. What now?
Oh, is he saying okay? Were you saying in 2 years will I have only 2 left?
I thought that was the way he framed it. At least that's how I interpreted it.
I'm pretty sure I'll have all the factions done in 2 years for certain. Like,
well, I would hope so. We already have so many factions in this game, and we're starting to get to a point where we want to start looking at. Well, I still have to look at AI, but that's besides the point. Besides AI, what is the next level that we're gonna push in term? Are we gonna push for campaign? Are we gonna push for an overworld map? Are we gonna push for, I don't know, dungeon maps? Like, what's the next step?
We need attachments for battalions, replenishing battalions, hero abilities. I
Almost
think,
forgot about that.
yeah, I think all the gameplay stuff should probably be done first before we start a campaign.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
And
fair enough.
we're getting pretty close. It's basically just those battalion additions and then hero abilities, and those are like really the only features I think we have left to add. I
Yeah.
feel
There's
like
always more.
yeah, there's
more in your
I
mind.
say that like, oh, there's only 3 more things. There's always more. You're right. I have to add in the navies, but that shouldn't be too hard to do.
I don't think it's necessary though to wait around to get everything conceivable. I think when gameplay reaches a point where it's good, right? That's when
Yeah.
you can start looking onto other things, and then if you come up with more features for multiplaying later down the line, you can always implement that, right? It's
Yeah.
I think it's more getting gameplay to the point where any guy on the internet can download it and it's like, hey, I had fun for 5 hours, right? That's like, I think that's a good goal.
Well, my personal next step would be initially just to finish implementing the AI for all the factions.
Yeah.
That's step number 1, and there are still things with the AI that are mildly bothering me, and I know I have to go over those issues, but they're all minor issues in comparison to what the AI is already capable of. I mean, obviously, a tryhard like Iron Wolf is gonna push through very hard AI, but at what point are you going to stop? Because this game is meant to be enjoyable, and most players have trouble with medium or hard difficulty already.
Yeah.
So I'm satisfied with the place where it is now to implement it for all the factions, and after that is done, you said you were gonna make the Hyrule Field map, right? I was hoping, because you just mentioned that you were going to do both in terms of minor factions. I was hoping that whenever you finish the Hyrule Field map, there's going to be those. What are those people called again? That minor faction?
Lon Ranch.
Lon Ranch. That once you put that on, that I want to play around with Lon Ranch.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first minor faction I'm adding into the game next, so that should be sometime in the next 2 months or so. That shouldn't be that far off from now.
And I might want to expand my personality system, because I do feel that it adds something more to, like, currently it's very basic. So I know I can do a lot more with it, but I've been postponing it quite a bit. It's all just, and you said you wanted to have extensions to battalions.
Yeah,
stuff.
basically
So
the banner carriers, things like
Yeah.
that, like the being able to attach the healers and banner carriers and those things to battalion. Basically, battalions that are able to have a different type of unit mixed in with them, other than the default unit.
Yeah.
And replenishing them, and then I think that's pretty much that should be all the heavy work for battalions done after that. And then the hero abilities, I think, is like the last big gameplay related thing I can think of. And then it's mostly just getting all the factions done, and then the campaigns.
Just the factions and the campaigns.
Yeah, just
and the overworld map.
Yeah, and the overworld map, yeah, which is kind of a campaign in a way.
I think personally, when gameplay is in a good place, I think getting the first arc is like the best idea to go with.
Yeah, well, it's like
then do the overworld later.
I think we were talking about this the other day, how the way I'm designing the different segments of the campaign is to be mostly self-contained, so that if I die, at least 1 or 2 of them are finished and complete, and it's not like a cliffhanger where like, oh, when's the next one gonna come?
Yeah.
Oh, he's dead now and it's never gonna be finished. Like,
obviously the first arc is not all set in stone, right? But it is where it's at the moment. It's pretty good.
I think
right?
the only
it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think the only thing we really need to figure out is how exactly Meg and the Poe sisters are tied to all the insanity going on there.
But like the major story beats are pretty much, I would say we have a pretty good idea where to go with it, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously there are the details, and then there's the other things into that. There's actual game design that goes into the campaign, obviously, right? And I think this happened when we did I remember, holy shit, that's a long time ago.
Probably 5 years ago.
Yeah, when we worked on the dialogue and the cinematic, right? Remember?
Yep. That was probably 5 years ago.
Yeah, and we cut out like half of it.
Yeah, a lot of the dialogue got cut out. And it was better. Oh, no, I remember what you're talking about. The whole it was in the second to last level, so it was like 3 years ago when they chop off Coherence'.
Yeah.
No, it was actually it was the very end of the game when they're all at the Temple of Time. And they're all celebrating. I had tons of conversations going on there, and I'm like, nope, just cut them all out, and it's just there's no conversation at all. It just show don't tell, brother.
Why the details you kind of figure it out when you get there, because things might not pan out in the way you imagined. Like it's no point writing a story like a storyboard now, because when you actually get to the map design and all the gameplay, it's like, hey, this doesn't flow naturally anywhere. We should just cut it. Right?
Yeah, it happens all the time. Even before you started helping me out, I'd have a script written out. I'd have all the things out, and then I'd start working on the level and animating it. And I'm like, this is not working. I'm going to change it. There's things that just once you actually see them, like things that seem fine in text, when you actually see them, it's like it doesn't translate, and it has to be changed to work.
I still think cutting out all the dialogue in the celebration in the Temple of Time was like a good move.
Yeah, I think that was great. I think I still have the dialogue saved somewhere, because I had dialogue with Oku and Lear, and
I have I still have
still have it. Yeah,
I fixed up. I touched up on it, so I still have it.
You still have it? Yeah, I had a whole conversation with Darunia and Rudo. The only conversation I kept was Link and Tetra, which was still a really long conversation that probably could have been cut down.
Yeah. No, but I think after the gameplay's in a good place, I think it's starting to work on there. Because the thing is, the first arc is also kind of like a tutorial arc, right?
Yeah, it's so like a tutorial, which the Kokiri being the tutorial is kind of fitting now that I think about it.
Yeah, and the thing is, it doesn't just, because it is a tutorial, it doesn't just teach you how to play the campaign, but it can also teach you how to play the game in large, right? So it's a very good introduction. You download the mod, you boot up multiplayer, like what the hell's going on? You play the campaign, and you're like, I actually know what the hell to do, and then you can go into the multiplayer after you finish that. And then even if, let's say, the campaign is finished and it's like maybe 3 years between work from the first arc to the second arc, you still have a self-contained story that serves a purpose within the game, right?
All the Kokiri stuff at the beginning is almost completely self-contained.
So
I mean, it is self-contained, and it's like resolved by the end of it. And I mean, each different story segment will lead into the next, but my plan is to make them self-contained enough that if the worst case scenario happens and I die, or everything gets shut down or whatever, then they'll be contained enough to where it'll feel like, okay, that's a good place to end, and then people won't be sad that the next one isn't done. Well, as sad. I mean, I would still be sad if I knew there were sequels to stuff I liked, but that weren't finished. But the first level, my thinking was basically the first level is the Kokiri. You're trying to set up a little festival or something, and it's like a tutorial on how to set up a little base and gather resources for the festival.
Yeah,
it's a nice little tutorial on how to capture nodes and stuff. Like, we need to find a good area to set up a little party for the festival. There's this little circle area out here. Go capture that, Link.
There's so much other stuff you can have, like creep on the map. It teaches people to clear creeps, right? It's like there's some freaking Dekubabas over there. Clear them out.
Dekubabas. Dekubabas.
So it's also, I think, just not because this is a story game in its in what it wants to be, but it's also a gameplay way, a good introduction for. I'm thinking if you download the mod, right? Maybe you played it 10 years ago or whatever, right? You have no idea, and then you can just play the campaign and get caught up to speed on the mechanics and a basic introduction to the world. And I think that serves a good gameplay purpose as well.
Yeah. I mean, I
kind of like,
it's the same case as it was years ago. I'm most excited to work on all the campaigns and stuff, but I definitely think I need to get all of the factions and units and stuff in the game first before I even start on that.
I always said that's the smartest thing to do.
It's
also
I'm looking
assets.
I'm looking at the list, and there are fewer factions left to finish than I thought. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, there's 10. I was right. There's 10 left. There's 10 left to do.
But I feel like it's always been the smartest thing to do, in my opinion. It also gives you assets to play with, right? So it's more productive that way.
Yeah. So I hope that answered your question, Exo, about the 5 years or whatever I don't even remember what the question was exactly. Something about in a few years from now.
It was just to get some kind of clarification on where we're heading. And
right.
We've had this talk many times, but sometimes it's good to readjust to what the hell we're doing.
Yeah, especially because my memory seems to only last about 6 months. I need to be reminded every 6 months.
No, but that's the other thing right now. Obviously, there's been the thing is, the sad part is I'm very engaged, obviously on the gameplay side, but I feel like it's a bit mostly on the technical, right? It's not so much of the design aspect, and that obviously that's another thing that kind of makes me more likely to disappear over larger points of time is that it's kind of limited what I can do. I can help Neph and work with Neph like in the off time, but generally I feel like your focus is best directed at the moment at the gameplay and get the factions finished, and then we can do all the other stuff later, right?
Yeah, I mean, while that's going on, I feel like it's a good opportunity to just develop all the story crap to have it so that when I actually get to making the missions, like there's like 75% of the work's done, basically.
The thing is, that's why when we did the reboot, I said that it's a good idea to just establish the world, because then you have a foundation, and then you don't need to worry about that shit later, right? You can just you're building a playground that you can move stuff around in, right? It's much easier when there is a playground and you don't have you're telling a story, but you're also figuring out what the hell is this world while you're trying to tell the story. That's a mess.
Yep. Which is basically what ended up happening, in Hyrule Conquest. I kind of started on the game. Like, I had an idea of what to do, but then I made the stupid mistake of every time a new game came out, I try to graft it on to mine. It kind of collapsed under its own weight.
I think the other problem, though, with the old lore and the story and the setting was that you've been working on it for so long that you were no longer the same person that started it. Right?
Yeah.
That's another...
Definitely. I'm not the same person at all that I was in 2009 or 2010.
I could never personally work on something that I started working out with in my early 20s, late teens. No way.
Yeah.
Absolutely no way.
I can't even look at my old RPGs from when I was 15 that I made. They're so bad. Some people like them, it's awesome, but I can't even. I have the George Lucas impulse of erasing, the old stuff that I did.
Are you talking about the era with Pish Posh?
What about Pish Posh? Oh yeah, Pish Posh. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, and even older than that.
I love Pish Posh.
I'm probably gonna keep Pish Posh because that I kind of like that. Pish Posh.
Did you the stuff you worked on in the Warcraft 3 engine, or did you just
Yes,
post about
it's
it?
probably still floating around. It is. It's somewhere. It was on the place I released it at was it was an old
Hive, was
website
it?
called FileFront, which I
Ah,
think
yeah,
got renamed to Gamefront. But
because
with enough digging, people can probably find all the oldest stuff I did for this in Warcraft 3 back in 2005 when I was like
I
14 years old.
because I think the thread on Hive is still up.
Yeah, the thread is still on the Hive workshop. I
Yeah.
occasionally will show people, to get a laugh.
I mean, I feel, you might cringe about it, but I think stuff like that is also cool that it exists because it kind of shows, like, if you look at that early inception and then you go and watch, let's say a new trailer you made, right? It kind of shows,
Yeah.
like, the progression of artistry and skill.
I
In a
mean,
way. And
the old Warcraft 3 stuff, I think it's so old and it's like from basically 2 lifetimes ago that it's almost like I didn't even make it. So it is like looking at something. I'm detached enough from it to where it doesn't make me like cringe, I guess. Whereas I still feel some kind of attachment to the stuff I did right after that in RPG
Yeah.
Maker that when I look back at it, it's like I can't believe I made that. It's just I mean, even Hyrule Total War, like a lot of the early stuff I did in Medieval 2, I can't look at it. It's just it's hard to explain. I feel like I don't know, maybe an artist or like a musician might be able to relate. Like when they did something a really long time ago, and they're just like, I can't believe I made that because you were just a completely different person at that time.
I can definitely relate to that. I've been meaning to get access to my old computer, right, and hard drive. But at the same time, I kind of cringed about it because that shit has all my old projects, and I know that morbid curiosity will like incline me to look at it, even though I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I know when I get that up and running, I'm gonna take a peek, and I'm probably gonna die. So I know how you feel.
Yeah, I can't look at my old stuff. It's just I have a feeling in like 10 to 20 years I might be able to when it's just like so far in the past that I'm like, oh yeah, that's funny.
Well, I
But-
mean, yeah, like all of your new models, you're doing them all in, or you're rendering them in
In
UE
Unreal.
4. I believe?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Unreal 4.
It does look. I have to say that. Also, going back to the new Gerudo models, I feel that also now looking at Mifa, aside from the shark teeth, like she does. No, they all look a bit more mature. They look less kid-ish. I don't know how.
It's the
how
eyes.
this-
It's the eyes.
They also seem taller though.
Some of them are. I mean, Mifa's actually the Mifa model I did is pretty short because I made her legs a little bit short and stubby, like they are in the game. But Riju's definitely like way taller than she is in the game she's from.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is that what I believe you were going for from the very beginning was a more mature storytelling, right? You want to move away from what the original creators of Zelda were trying to do with it, and you were trying to give your own, how'd you say, your own ideas about how the Zelda story should go.
That's definitely a way I'd put it. I would just like to tell a story at all.
The thing is, when it comes to Zelda, like everyone, you occasionally get people that ask like, why bother? And I can relate to this personally because I haven't made a game out of it, but I always, when I was younger, I used to write a lot of Zelda fan fiction. Like I'm sure a lot of people have been in that phase. The thing is, the setting is super cool. It has a lot of potential. I think like
yeah, I was waiting for you to say it. It has a
Yeah.
lot of potential. I was waiting for you to say it. That's why. It's because there is so much just raw potential that's just been utterly squandered and wasted. Like I can't just let it sit there. I have to. It's like I have to unlock at least some of the potential in this fucking series that's just going nowhere with the people who have it.
But even then, like, you can tell that there's something about this setting in general. Like, even people that are enamored with the games, right? They actually do generally enjoy the games. A lot of those people still go on and make their own things and interpretations. It's because the setting kind of lends itself to that sort of I mean creative expression, right? Because they
Yeah.
are vague. They are super vague. You know, they allow you to play around with them, and you know that's why the fearing, you know, why Zelda theories are such a big thing, right? It's because the setting kind of lends itself for people to be creative and think about things. And in its own way, I think that's positive. It's just a shame that the developer that, you know, owns the publishing right to something, they don't support that sort of creativity, right? I
Yeah,
think that's the only.
that's the sad thing is like Nintendo just tries to destroy fan stuff. I was just talking about Nintendo and Disney doing that on a completely unrelated forum earlier. We're talking about because actually EXO, you could probably relate to this. It was on a Roller Coaster Tycoon Discord, and people are trying to add in rides from Disneyland to the game, and they're like, "Oh no, Disney's gonna shut everything down." And like, we got into this big discussion how like Disney and Nintendo are just utterly remorseless when it comes to fans making stuff, and it's bizarre. Like, it's kind of bizarre.
It is, especially if you look at something like Bethesda. Like, sure, Bethesda is shady as fuck, right? Let's not, you know, they're not a great.
Yeah,
they're not a great.
They just work.
They're not a great studio, but that's one thing I always liked about Bethesda is that they have such a liberal sort of way at looking at fan creations. I mean, look at all of the, you know, test projects going on right now, right? As long as you are not making bank on it, they don't give a shit. And I know a lot of the developers enjoy the developers themselves. They really do enjoy the fan side of the community, right?
Yeah, I think.
And what people have created there. If you go and look at, you know, Beyond Skyrim project, what the people over there are working on. Shout out to them, by the way. You guys should check out their Discord. It's just pure passion for the project, right? And tons of developers love that. And I just and the thing is, Tess already had a lot of the Tess lore was built around the fan community, like in the early days. And you know, a lot of the main writers from that series have gone out now. They are not with Bethesda anymore, but they're like, yeah, shit, write fan fiction, guys. Nothing is canon.
Kirkbride.
Yeah, no, but you know, you can say whatever about him, but I really agree with him. Like,
yeah.
He you know, he says this is everyone that enjoys this universe. If you want to write something in that universe, please go ahead. And I can really respect that. I mean, he even made his own fan fiction after, you know, leaving Bethesda.
Yeah, I think it's completely terrible what companies like Nintendo and Disney, like, they're just anti-fan stance. I think what annoys me about Disney in particular is Disney built its entire power base off of basically taking things it didn't own, and just kind of putting, you know, the Disney spin on it. Didn't even like change the names, like, you know, all the you know, the fairy tales, like, some of which the authors were still alive at the time, like Alice in Wonderland, like, and now they're just like, no, you can't. Well, and also another thing people don't seem to realize is copyright law, the way it is now, is entirely because of Disney. The whole, they have the rights to it for 75 years before it goes into public domain. That was all pushed by Disney in the 90s because they were going to lose the rights to Mickey Mouse. I want to say it was in 1991 or 1989, somewhere around there. And Disney, they lobbied to completely fuck over the 25-year copyright law thing and extend it to 75 years or whatever, so they wouldn't lose the rights to Mickey. And now they're trying to push it again to 90 years or 100-something years. Like,
but there's such a cognitive dissonance with terms of copyright and what it means to own something. Like, yeah. The thing is, like, take Zelda. Someone could have been born around the time Ocarina of Time was released, grow up, and become a fan of the Zelda games, and then work at Nintendo, start making their own games. If that is not, you know, fan fiction, I don't know what it is. That's the problem with a lot of these properties. They're not owned by anyone. They're owned by an abstract.
Yeah, most of the people who worked on Breath of the Wild were little kids when Zelda was made, including the guy directing it, the Fujibayashi, whatever the hell his name is. The guy I don't like that much. The guy with his highly a waifu. Him, he was like 10 when the first Zelda game was made. So yeah, Breath of the Wild's basically fan fiction. It's just not because, it has a Nintendo stamp on it. So, I mean, I completely understand this notion of like authority making something official.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm more chaotic.
I mean, I like to operate in the more chaotic sphere. Yeah, because I just think that's healthier for the survival of any, a thing, like anything. Like there has to be like, it's just because before the 1900s, before all this copyright stuff, that's how stories worked. Like stories were folk. Like you had different versions of a story within different communities, and they all like, that's what perpetuated stories. Like that's why we have stories from like 2,000 years ago and more, because there wasn't copyright. Like all these like Star Wars is probably gonna be gone in like a century or two. It'll just be gone because there's a stranglehold on it. But if it ever got in the hands of just like communities, and you have all these different versions of Star Wars going out, it'll probably survive a lot longer. That's just the same for anything. Like,
but that's why brand worshipping kind of bothers me, because I know in an alternate timeline, right?
Yeah.
Something like Hyrule Conquest is probably got probably picked up by Nintendo.
Yeah, the alternate universe.
Yeah, or whatever other company that owns the sell that in that universe, and they're like, yeah, here's some resources, here's the team, we want to make your wish in a real game, and people would be fine with it.
Yeah,
right?
It's
just because of that brand.
It's that stamp of authority, which again, I don't want to dismiss. The notion of authority coming down to mark something as official or whatever. But yeah, I don't like brand worship either.
No, I completely agree with you that you shouldn't completely dismiss it. But I think it's important that we all, if we enjoy something, we examine what about the thing we enjoy and what makes it, a part of something we like, right? I think it's important that you always take a step back and examine that.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is that obviously, there's that stamp of quality. Like Nintendo, you can say what you will about Nintendo, but they do make a lot of good products in terms of they're not as buggy and glitchy and broken, right? Like, so you're getting something out of it that is probably okay. But I've said this before. I'm not going to go a huge tangent, but more times than not, I found fan creations to be on par, if not higher quality, than the thing that I initially, began my interest in a particular property. Right? I've read, book-sized fan fiction that rivals the writing of the original book.
Yeah, I mean, look at Valve. Like half their games started as mods, like friggin' Portal and Counter-Strike. Was it Counter-Strike that was the mod? Team Fortress 2, that was the mod. I think Counter-Strike and Team Fortress 2 both started as mods to Half-Life. Like they Valve has the right idea. They're like, oh yeah, this fan stuff is cool. Let's throw some money at them, and then they can give us some of the profits, and it'll be a game. Like even Sega got the what was it? The Sonic
Yeah, Sonic Mania, yeah.
Yeah, Sonic Mania. Like, some guy who lives in Washington. Like, Sega was like, oh, this fan is actually making something higher quality than our official games. Let's, throw a little money at him and, we can get some of the profits. Basically, the best Sonic game since the 90s was made by some random guy in Washington.
But yeah,
who wasn't even in Japan. Like...
Yeah. No, but circling back to what I was saying with Zelda, that's kind of how I see Zelda. And the thing, it's kind of changed. I don't know if people... I know you agree with me, Neff, but I'm not sure if other people have noticed. Like, if you've been in the Zelda community for, I would say, at least 10 years, the perception regarding fan creation has changed dramatically.
It's done a complete 180. This is why I'm not even part of Zelda communities anymore. Like,
if you go back, if you go back to older websites and Zelda forums and even DeviantArt, you will see that back in the day there was a huge culture around Zelda where people made their own stuff.
Yeah, like my favorite one was the Tweely community. They're like all these different artists and stuff. They all like kind of fleshed out the Twilight realm, and it was great. And now like
that was a pretty huge movement.
Actually. Yeah, it was big. I actually I don't know if she'd want me to say this publicly, but there's a particular artist in that community. One of the one of my favorite artists. I hadn't talked to her in years, and I talked to her like a week or two ago, and she said she's not part of any Zelda community anymore because it's just they're all assholes basically, for lack of a better term. And I was like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, there's like this really weird, like, just kind of hostile sort of, I don't know how to explain it, and it's completely opposite of like the Star Fox fandom, because I'm part of a bunch of Star Fox discords, and despite all the weirdness with some Star Fox fans, they're just absolutely pleasant to talk to. Like, but I'm not part of any Zelda communities. They're a nightmare to interact with. I barely post on the True Zelda Discord. Like, it's weird. Like,
well, I'm a huge advocate for fan fiction, and so I usually find that people who tend to write this sort of stuff are motivated by the original, and they usually have some great ideas to write about. Like, not always, but upon all of these iterations, the same with modifications for games like Skyrim, and people are so passionate. I don't know. It doesn't just extend; it also just improves the game overall.
yeah,
And
well,
it makes the original creators money too, because the game stays alive and fresh.
the thing that kind of always confused me about like the people who are just so hostile against fan things is like, just ignore it. Like, just ignore it. If you think a fan thing looks terrible, just ignore it. Like, there's tons and tons of official things I just ignore because I don't like them. Like, let me think of like something I have absolutely no interest at all in Call of Duty, so I just ignore Call of Duty. Like, I don't go like, Call of Duty, I hate it. It's like, no, I don't. I just ignore it.
Yeah, I want to make.
It's
I wanna
so
make
weird.
Clear, though, I think I should clarify, because I see someone mentioned in chat. When I say fan fiction, I don't necessarily just mean writing. I mean fan creation in general. As Neff mentioned, there was the Twilight movement and DeviantArt. There was also a huge Sheikah community back in the early 2010s.
Yeah, the Sheikah one.
The thing is, there were people that just made original stuff based on the original source material, but didn't really have anything to do with the game in general. They were just inspired by it, and there were people. I followed a few projects back in the day, world building projects, that pretty much did what we're doing with Hyrule Conquest. They just made their own Hyrule. There's plenty of those. They just made their own Hyrule. Like, there was no story, but they were just world building, making art. Several artists coming together, making art for their interpretation of Hyrule, and this shit was very common back in the day. And obviously, I'm not saying it's completely dead right now. I do see it occasionally, but the reception of such is very different now than it used to be. Way different. An artist that makes, fleshes out the culture of the Sora in Breath of the Wild is not going to get as much attention as someone that just draws shippy pictures about Zelda and Link. People don't care. No, but it's kind of the truth.
No, it's the truth. It's sad. I was posting. It wasn't on a Zelda Discord. It was just on a video game Discord. I was posting the render I did of the Temple of Time like a few weeks ago, and the first response I got was like, "Someone with your talent should just make porn with this," and I'm started laughing because like there's a weird truth to that. Like, I'm like,
this all draws me back to all those inflation pictures that we were scouring through.
Mipha.
Was that Mipha?
That was Mipha. It's a way to bring this whole conversation full circle.
Well, that was so, I don't know. It's just how people spend their time. Like,
but I mean, there's like a dark truth to what that person said, because if you go on like Patreon, like all the top Patreons, they're all lewd. They're all lewd stuff. Like, I could probably make just tons and tons of money just making lewd 3D models of Zelda stuff, but I just don't want to. I want to actually make like an interesting Zelda thing that will be around after I'm dead, that tries and actually uses the potential that's just been utterly squandered with this whole series for the last decade. Like, I don't know. I guess that makes me crazy to, the average Zelda fan, so I can live with that. I can live with being crazy.
But, I mean, I don't know. I just feel there might be like some underground thriving community of artists beyond ours in the Zelda community, somewhere in the far dark corner of the internet. I've not encountered them. Like
I
back in the
haven't
day,
found him either.
yeah, back in the day, I would just scroll down my DeviantArt page and I would just find a new community every other day.
Yeah, and it's only with Zelda right now. Like, it's the exact opposite with Star Fox. Like, I'm making a Star Fox game, and the Star Fox setting is kind of, vague and ill-defined. And just like a week ago, I was on the Free Space Discord. I was, posting some ideas I had of like different galactic powers and stuff, and everyone got involved and was like, "Oh yeah, this is cool." Like, and they, they're all throwing in their ideas and stuff, and it was like a nice little community thing. If I did that on a Zelda Discord, they'd just be like, "Oh, that doesn't match canon." And I'm like, okay, bye.
As if canon even really matters for Zelda. Give me a
that's
break.
the thing that breaks my brain. It's like, I can understand like Lord of the Rings. Like, Lord of the Rings has like a very kind of defined thing. I can understand them being like, well, this doesn't really match like the canon of Lord of the Rings, but Zelda's so sloppy. Like, as far as like, it's so inconsistent. Like, of all the
Zelda...
things to be so obsessed with canon about, like, Zelda, really? Like,
Zelda is just as disheveled as it can possibly get.
Yeah, like,
it is.
It's
ripe
the weirdest.
for
It's the weirdest setting to be so obsessed about canon. Like, I gave up on canon and Zelda like 10 years ago.
I think there's. It's weird because I've noticed this actually yesterday. Or I've noticed this for a while, but it started. I actually got mad about something on the internet for once.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually got generally annoyed about something, and it's funny what you say that. And someone mentioned it. This obsession with canon, it's always been there, right? But it's excessive in the West
I agree
now.
completely, because the thing is, like,
excessive.
I think people misunderstand how canon works. Like, because one, canon is a religious word. It actually comes from and it has religious origin. So one, it's kind of weird that people are using religious terminology for completely fictional things made by companies whose goal is to, siphon money off of their customers. But people have this idea that canon is like, there's like this one person or like some kind of like oligarchy that picks out what's official and not, but that's not how canon worked, even in its religious context. Canon is basically like if we use, the Catholic Church as an example, like they would see like what people were reading, and they'd be like, okay, this is what people are reading. This seems to be, this is what all their liturgy they're doing. This is going to be our canon. And canon would change over time. Like canon is not like this 100% static thing that's like locked forever. It changes because there's all these marginal things that, like you can see canon is like an axis mundi. It's like a center point that creates a stable identity, and then you have all the fluid sort of things at its periphery. Like,
but I actually have a perfect example, right, of what we're talking about, and why this blows my mind and it's actually to the point where I'm actually getting a bit annoyed about it, because this is a very Western thing. I don't really get this vibe in Japan, where they're kind of like, oh, whatever, yeah, it's alternate world, who cares? It's a very Western thing I've noticed. Again, that might be anecdotal, but a good example of this is, okay, so a lot of people's like, oh yeah, canon consistency, right? It would be logical to jump to the conclusion, but then you have something like you have Majora's Mask.
I'm glad you brought up that word, but go on.
Yeah,
I'll get to consistency in a moment. Go on.
You have Majora's Mask, and then you have freaking Triforce Heroes in the same series, and they're both considered.
They're both canon. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Age of Calamity comes out, and people say it's not canon. And I'm like, what? Why not? Wait, why is it not canon? Oh, yeah, it's not made by Nintendo. But I'm like, but Minish Cap wasn't made by Nintendo.
Yeah, Minish Cap, the Oracle games weren't.
What
Triforce Heroes wasn't either. Wasn't Triforce Heroes made by Grezzo or whatever?
Yeah,
whatever they're called? I can't remember. Yeah. I still haven't even played Triforce Heroes, and I never will.
To me, it seems like canon is whatever I think is good, and anything else that I don't like, I can deem non-canon, which is wrong. That's not how you go about it. Because that doesn't like that. The logic breaks completely down there with the Zelda example, because Triforce Heroes and Majora's Mask are so completely different games in both theme, gameplay. Like, they're super different. There are certain things they share, obviously, but you could say that a spiritual successor of Zelda could share a similar amount of things. But okay, I can accept their canon. And then Age of Calamity comes out, and people dismiss it as a non-canon game spin-off. And I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense. Like, the entire logic breaks down.
Yeah, it's...
Like, why is that game... How is Age of Calamity not canon to the timeline, and then Triforce Heroes, no, that's canon. Minish Cap is canon. Like, is Link's crossbow training, that's not canon, and I'm like...
that Link's crossbow training was made internally at Nintendo with Miyamoto at the head. Like, crossbow training should be, like, one of the most canon games there is. Miyamoto himself was involved in that one.
But it's not on the timeline. I'm like, so it's the timeline that decides what's canon or not. But Nintendo only updates the timeline maybe every few years, so... If they don't do that, it's not. Is it like a waiting game? We're waiting for Nintendo to finally release. Like, you see what I mean? Like, it makes no sense.
Well, that's why earlier you used the word consistency. I'm more concerned. I guess for my personal sort of outlook is I care more about internal consistency than, you know, what is canon and what isn't canon. Like, because at the end of the day, I don't. Like, Nintendo is a video game company. They're not, like, a religious authority over me, so I don't really give a crap what they say isn't canon. Like,
I don't care about canon. I never understood this.
Yeah, Electronic Arts made a Zelda game that thematically and, like, it was very consistent with Ocarina of Time, and it fit with it. Like, I would gravitate towards that before, like, Triforce Heroes or Breath of the Wild any day, because, like, I'm interested in... the continuation of what was started in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask more than this abstract, broad, you know, all the Zelda games have to be canon sort of idea.
Well, I have said this before, and it's clear as day, especially in Zelda, is that I've said at the very beginning that I've never become a Zelda fan because, in my opinion, it was rather childish. But aside from that, probably even more importantly, is that the entire story of Zelda has been catered to gameplay, and that's with all the Zelda games. You know, story is secondary.
Outright said that,
right? So that's the whole thing. And if you want to make fan fiction and make something that you think the world should be like, then you just do it. You just fill in the blanks. And with something like Zelda that's so disheveled, it is a lot easier to fill in blanks because there are quite a few blanks where you can interpret things in your own way, where it's pretty clear that everyone has a different perspective and different ways to interpret the world. So you get a lot of creativity there. But
again, I think that I agree with you. I think, but might be anecdotal, but this is a very Western thing. Like, over in Japan, and you kind of get this vibe. You guys probably noticed that this vibe from playing Japanese games that they just say, it's alternate universe.
Just look at Godzilla, like...
Yeah, don't worry about it. That's literally every time. Don't worry about it. Alternate universe. Yeah, but no, don't worry about it. I think while that can be annoying, it's helped a lot of franchises because you can get so much out of a franchise, right? Because there's so many people making stuff, and they don't give a shit about what the other stuff is. They maybe borrow some ideas, but they ultimately make their own stuff. And when people are coming in there and asking, but what does this universe relate to this universe? And they're like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Shut up.
It's just something new. It's like the Fate series. Nobody knows.
Yeah. But the Fate series is like a great example of that. Like, the entire Gnostiverse is a super good example of it. Like, don't worry about it. Shut up. Like, no one in Japan is, like, sitting down, making charts how everything relates to each other. They just don't worry about it. Just enjoy it.
If I can be a bit cynical, I actually think it might be copyright that's making people think like this.
Yeah, but I think that's a much healthier, aspect to it. Like, if I find, like, a doujin in Japan, and I read that doujin, I'm like, oh shit, this is good. And if I ask the creator, like, okay, but where does this relate to the canon series, they're like, don't worry about it, just enjoy the fucking doujin.
I mean, that goes hand in hand with Shinto.
Yeah,
So
but
how does this commie relate to this commie? And they're like, just don't worry about it, unless you're support a state Shinto.
But honestly, I've started to take this into myself. Like when I see these huge threads, people raging about, Age of Calamity. Oh fuck, it's a spin-off game. How is it this canon? I'm like, don't worry about it.
I'm literally not worrying about it. I'm never gonna play that game because I have no interest in playing that game.
But I'm thinking, I remember that game came out and people were super upset. First ever because of the marketing, but yeah. But
the thing about that's funny is like I called all of it. I'm like I remember when they first announced it. Everyone's like, oh, it's gonna be a prequel to Breath of the Wild. It's gonna show them all dying. I'm like, it's gonna be an alternate history thing where they all live. Yeah. I called it the day the trailer, like within, I don't know if you were there, but like on the Discord, I'm like, it's gonna be an alternate history, dude. No one's gonna die. It's not.
We discussed this, not on stream, but in voice chat.
I called it all.
You said that, and I was like, no. They said that they can't shoot themselves in the foot. I
called it.
Yeah, you were right. You were completely right.
I called it.
No, but here's the thing. I think a lot more people would have been chill if they just kind of were a bit more transparent. I understand they didn't want to spoil the fact that it was an alternate ending, right? I do understand that, but if they just had shut the fuck up and not said anything, I don't think people would have cared.
The reason I called it wasn't because of like I had any secret knowledge or anything. It's just because I know at the bottom of my heart, Nintendo, as of today, would never ever have the balls to make a game where all the main characters horribly die at the end. I'm like, they're never going to do that. Not with the way the companies run now. They never, ever, ever would do that. So I just knew instantly, this is an alternate history. They're all going to live.
I think they are capable of doing that. But
not with Zelda.
Yeah, but not with certain franchises. Like, Nintendo, like, I bring it up because it's such a good example of recent games. The Avatar brutally murders a protagonist in a Nintendo game, right? In Three Houses.
Yeah.
So certain franchises they're good.
But see, Fire Emblem, one of the main gameplay features is characters being permanently killed. Like,
true, yeah.
That's like actually that's built into the gameplay too. Like characters dying permanently and trying to keep them from dying permanently. So I can see that being like I think we went off on like tons of huge tangents, but oh well. That's fine.
Canon, don't worry about it. You like game, you play game. You don't like game, you don't play game.
You should really only worry about canon from like your religious authorities, not from video game companies. Like, it's very like strange.
The canon thing is I don't know if I'm the only one getting that vibe, but it feels like such a it's a lot of people use it like a smug tool to kind of feel superior to others. Like, yeah, but that game is a spin-off. It's not canon, right? You know what I mean? It's not. I'm just sitting there like,
yeah,
I don't care. It feels like such a cheap way to proclaim one's superiority over someone else in an argument. Like, oh, this game is probably going to be really fun. Yeah, but it's a spin-off. It's not canon. I would know that because I played all the original games.
I mean, I've definitely had that thrown at my face over my work, and I'm just like, yeah, my stuff's not canon. I'm not in communion or contact with anyone at Nintendo. Like, why would it be canon? Like, I never said it was canon.
We should start saying that too, in relation to Iron Kongs. Just like, don't worry about it.
No, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Just play it.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, like, I've been saying for years, like, movies and video games, like, all these things around them are turning into, like, weird little cults where they, like, want to turn their thing into a religion. That's probably where canon itself is a religious word. Like, that's probably where this idea is coming from. It's, like, some, like, weird attempt to reinforce some kind of religious authority over, like, video games. It's so weird.
It feels like a lot of people do dictate, if this, like... Can I like this thing if it's not considered canon? And I'm like, yeah, sure you can. Don't worry about it. Like, but it feels like people, I got the gripe with this Age of Calamity. There was a lot of people generally asking, like, is this game going to be good? Because it seems like a spin-off. And I'm like, why does it matter? If the game's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. Does it matter if it's canon or a spin-off or whatever the hell it is? I don't. Sorry, I just don't understand the mindset. It seems to me such a prevalent thing in the in
yeah, and it really seemed to come out of nowhere, like very rapidly over the last few years. It's I don't know what to say about it. Like, I don't know. I think I've said all I could say about it.
I'm going canon. Is it canon, Neff?
Is what canon?
Yeah. Is it canon?
Is what canon?
Hyrule Conquest.
No, it's not. It's not canon at all. I don't have any. I'm not a bishop in Nintendo's clergy. I can't. Unless I can't say if it's canon or not. I don't have that authority.
But how do I know if it's good if it's not canon? No, I'm joking.
I would just like to interrupt here because I gotta go.
Alrighty.
I have to work again tomorrow just before Easter. It was good to see you again, Deox. Like,
yeah,
happy
fun.
to see you're joining us again on this voyage into oblivion.
It's always a pleasure to have both of you on at the same time.
Yeah, it's been a really long time since I've talked to Deox in private, but not via stream.
Yeah,
and not with you here either, Neff. It's been
yeah, you and I did a stream ourselves like 6 months ago, and Deox and I did a stream by ourselves like a year ago. I think it's been over a year since all three of us were in a stream together. It's been over a year now. Yeah, maybe we can do this next month.
Yeah.
Assuming Deox hasn't gone back to the grave until next Easter.
I think no, but the thing I can say that if we want to do it again, I think all I need due to how busy I am in my daytime is just planning, right?
Like a month, like 2 months in advance, you have to plan it.
No, nothing that excessive, right? But if I know we want to do a live stream or we want to work on something in like a week or two in advance, then I can plan my schedule around it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much alright. Pretty much at that point. But yeah, I'm not going to keep you longer. That was really fun having you around, EXO.
Yeah, man. Like we don't really talk that often, but
yeah.
I mean,
I don't talk to anyone a lot. So there you go.
No. Yeah, I think we got to a point where EXO and I talked more than any other combination of us three.
All right, man. I'll speak to all of you later then.
Alrighty, see ya.
All right, see ya.
We can keep going if you want and actually get into the nitty-gritty. But I
sure.
need a toilet break. I need a toilet break, so you can probably do it.
Yeah, I'll look at the chat and answer some questions while you're on the can, and I guess I'll see you in a few minutes.
Yes, I'll be back.
Alrighty, audience. I haven't been paying attention to the chat in like 20 minutes, so let's see what I missed. Let me scroll up a little bit. It looks like I missed a lot. The CDI games, crossbow training. Yeah. Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love is the only canon Zelda game. I still need to play those games. I don't really have interest in them, but they do look so bizarre and weird that I'd be curious to try them one day. Yeah, the funnily enough, you joke about the Tingle Balloon Trip Love games being the only canon Zelda game. I mean, Miyamoto was directly involved in making those Tingle games. Miyamoto had nothing to do with Breath of the Wild, so if canon's all about authority of creators, those Tingle games are more canon than some of the new Zelda games because Miyamoto had his stamp on them and was actively involved in them, so it's funny. See, canon is consistency. I would... Actually, I think Deox actually kind of went about that. I'd actually say canon isn't necessarily consistent. Because, as Deox pointed out, like, in the Zelda canon, there's games that are just horribly inconsistent with each other, and yet they're still part of the canon. Canon's basically like... It's like I said, it's like an agreed upon... It's a religious word, and it involves liturgy, which video games don't really have, unless you count, like, conventions and stuff. That's kind of like a liturgy. Like, canon is, like, it's what you read, it's the stuff you read in church, basically, and perform the liturgy with. It's the stuff everyone kind of agrees, like, this is what we do in the church. Like, in the Catholic Church, you had the canon, and then you also had the Apocrypha, which was all of these other texts that you were allowed to read at home, but you weren't actually allowed to use as part of the liturgy in your local church or whatever. A great example is the Book of Enoch. Unless you're Ethiopian, then the Book of Enoch is in your canon liturgy. Like canon's not like this. I think people have like a completely weird, like the way people treat canon right now is more like copyright, which is why I joked that I think copyright is what's causing all this weird like canon debate stuff that's been taking off. It's like canon isn't, it's not ownership. It's like, it's just, I'm having trouble really putting it into words, but anyway, let me see what other questions there are. Actually, let me go to the bottom. Maybe there's some questions. Let's see, when is Hyrule Conquest getting an update on the story? I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier in the stream. I'm going to try and get all the factions and all the gameplay stuff done and into the game first, so that none of that's really distracting me, and I can just work on the campaign and kind of the story stuff all, without getting distracted by all the other stuff. Let's see. Demoko's asking, when am I gonna voice chat in the Discord? I actually used to do that pretty regularly a few years ago, and it ended up becoming a disaster, so I don't really voice chat in the Discord anymore. I don't really do that anymore. Let's see, will we get Hyrule Conquest crossbow training? I do have a nice little thing from Link's crossbow training in Hyrule Conquest, so does that count? Let's see, Antonio DeSanto asks, what are your plans for the Locomo? I don't really have any plans for them at the moment. I had some idea of things I wanted to do with them a few years ago, and I kind of just abandoned them because I don't really find the Locomo particularly interesting. If Deox can come up with an interesting idea for them, maybe I'll figure something out. But at the moment, they're kind of just going to be missing in action from Hyrule Conquest. Let's see. Idle question. Will Zola resemble their usual selves from the Total War models, or will they be different? There's going to be quite a few varieties of them because their designs have changed slightly between the first few Zelda games. I'm going to have them look as close as they can to the different versions from the different Zelda games. Like in Spirit Tracks, you have the Geozards, which are like these kind of muscular, warrior-looking River Zoras. And then there's some River Zoras that don't even have legs, I think, in Zelda 2. So there'll be some that don't even have legs. I'm going for variety.
They have shark teeth.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna have shark teeth. All right, I'll ask one more question, and then I guess we can get back to whatever the topic was. See, Luke is asking, are Marin and Malin connected at all in Nephi canon? I know Koholint is a while off, but those two are my favorite characters. They are. Deox and I actually were just talking about Malin 2 or 3 days ago. And Koholint too. I think they are connected for sure in Nephi canon, but I won't go into details because I haven't gone into details with Deox yet about that. I have an idea for that maybe we'll talk about after the stream or some other day. About Koholint and all of that. Alright, what were we going to talk about now? I've completely forgot. I think we just went off on like a huge tangent about... I think it started with the Star Fox voiceover thing, and then it just went off on a huge tangent about other stuff.
It just kind of spiraled out of there. That's when the shark teeth are very distracting. So, no, I mean, we can take the moment. I guess we could just kind of answer a few more questions and see where the topic leads.
Hey, do you just want to do Q&A, and then we could just talk about other stuff later, like stuff that I don't want to be public?
Yeah, sure. If something comes to mind now, we can.
Yeah, I can't really think of a specific thing to talk. I know that I had some ideas before we started, but I got so sidetracked that I forgot.
If anyone has an interesting topic in the chat, we can kind of continue from there and see kind of where it leads.
Let's just look in the chat then. So can I make more Paya videos? There'll be more Paya someday in the future. Yes.
We need more Paya content. Where is the mod heading without the Paya content?
Paya. See, hello, Undying Nephilim. The Fantasy Kaiju Geek is asking this question. I have a major question regarding the Triforce. It doesn't exist in Hyrule Conquest, or does it have some importance? The Triforce definitely exists in Hyrule Conquest. It's mysteriously absent from some official Zelda games recently, actually. But yeah, the Triforce is definitely a thing in Hyrule Conquest, and I think I've actually talked about it on stream. Kind of the idea of the Triforce is it's kind of like the idea of like a star in like ancient mythology, or just any god or deity in any like old belief. It's like it's the guiding principle that kind of creates an identity that like people follow in Hyrule. It's the axis of the Hylian religion.
I mean that's still kind of in tune with how it is in Canon as well, and it's also been like an interesting aspect about the Triforce that I don't feel they dwell too much on. Like they talk about it, how it's a guiding principle, and then they kind of just leave it there. We don't really see it in motion. We just hear about it, right? We talk about how Nintendo is they really like to talk about how the Triforce turn people into assholes.
I mean, it's like in the early games, it's really not subtle. Like the literal objective of the game is to get the Triforce pieces. Like it's the thing that shapes your entire purpose. Like, I mean, there's some weird like materialistic kind of things they've done with it, where it seems like they've turned it into a technology. Kind of. I
mean,
it could be a technology, I guess, but I feel like the Triforce is more than just that. It's.
We also did discuss that to some degree in a materialistic way, because due to the Triforce. This is about Hyrule Conquest, by the way.
Okay.
And how the Triforce is not just only a guiding principle, but just. I mean, you shared it on the Discord. What the hand it had in the creation of the world.
Yeah.
In a sense, everything is the Triforce, and everything strives to be the Triforce. In a sense, I guess everything is kind of led towards it, in an abstract sense.
Yeah, it's the icon of the game.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense if you look at it's been posted multiple times, the Hylian cosmology of the world, and if you can interpret some truth of that. Everything has the Triforce to some degree within them.
Yeah, so I guess to answer that question, it is definitely a thing in Nephi canon, and it's very important to the point where if the Triforce, if the Hylians forgot about the Triforce or whatever, then Hyrule wouldn't be the same anymore. I wouldn't be making the game.
Probably would be really bad.
Yeah. I'm seeing lots and lots of questions. So they're kind of zipping by. I need to scroll back up. Okay, there's the Marin and Malin question. So I think that's in case we get a 19-minute rant. That wasn't quite a 19-minute rant about the Triforce. So there's the Triforce question. See, any non-spoiler info you can share on the Koroks and Sulcaris connection. Deox actually very briefly talked about that literally minutes before the stream.
Yeah.
I guess the only non-canon spoiler I can give is there is definitely a connection between them. That's about all I can say right now.
The thing is, the ideas we have surrounding the first arc, they're so cool that I actually don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, I really don't. And also because they're not 100% really fleshed out yet either.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I think a lot of the impact is just going to, if you play the campaign, and I think that just the revelations there are going to be really cool if you don't know what's coming. I think it would... Because there's a lot of mystique, I guess, in the first couple of missions where you're figuring out what the hell's going on, and I personally don't think we should spoil it. I think it should be good to go, even if we... Like, I'm talking larger plot threads of what's going to happen with Sulcaris and all that. I just don't think... I think it's much cooler if people get to experience it themselves one day.
Yeah, I definitely will say there's a connection between them. And when I was like updating Solcaris for all the new stuff, her model like 8 months ago, a year ago now. I intentionally, my thinking behind her design was to make her look like some kind of evil, twisted Korok looking thing. That's kind of like you never ever get a really good look at her, and you never will. I mean, people, they'll open the model and take a look at her and kind of ruin it. But in the context of the story, like you're never gonna get a good look at her. She's always gonna be kind of like vague and kind of like shrouded because I think that kind of helps the character a little bit.
Yeah. I guess one thing we could say about Soul Carriers, because we have talked about this before, and it's not really a spoiler, it's more of a world building thing, and kind of reinforcing that, the lore has been rebooted, is, I guess, what the First Sages are.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is
Theoretically,
this what we also talked about earlier with all the
Yeah.
First Sages?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
okay.
what
Go on.
Or rather, yeah, now, like, because if you guys are familiar with old canon, the First Sages were kind of more like mystical in this, in the sense they were more divine. That's kind of been changed around in the reboot. They were at one point quote unquote mortal, or Collins, and the forms that you guys are familiar with are kind of the result of them, being twisted by their sagehood.
Their hubris.
Yeah, and that plays into Soul Carries that she at one point was a human, I guess, more humanoid, right?
She was, yeah, she was much more human at one point in the
Yeah.
past.
And
and
then-
you'll only get very small glimpses of that aspect of her.
And I think, yeah, so think the First Sages, they were this, really important Collins around the time of, the Gustav and stuff in the world, and due to shenanigans, they were, twisted. And I guess that's also kind of plays into why some of them are very absent from the world. That they kind of,
Yeah, the
I guess they
entire Colin kingdom like collapsed.
they kind of
And-
got. You could say they got lost in their elements, actually.
Yeah,
You could actually say
yeah.
that.
I mean, there's probably a correlation between the collapse of that kingdom and the sages spiraling out, and yeah, they got lost. Yeah, they got lost in their elements. I mean, Sulcara's got lost in the darker aspects of the forest,
Yeah.
I guess, very, very literally.
The thing is, and that's the thing about the elements, is that there are multiple aspects, and that I guess that plays into Soul Cares what life really is. It's not just flowers and whatnot. There are twisted aspects to each element, I guess, that are not always apparent. Like even like something else like water, right? We talked about this with the Sora before, how water is such a malleable element, right?
Yeah.
And it can affect you in different ways that might not be too obvious. And I think the Sora as a race and culture is like the best representation of that. And not just the High Sora, but the Linearu and the Soul River Zora as well.
Even those filthy shark teeth Zora.
Yeah.
Mifa's grace is ready. Chomp.
Chomp, chomp.
Chomp,
No,
chomp.
but, I think the Soul Carry stuff in the reboot is really cool. But yeah, I don't want to spoil too much of it. But it's something to look forward to.
She's basically the only OC that survived the Great Purge.
Yeah. The thing is, I've said this before, though, Soul Carriers, and by extension the First Sages, they always felt very Zelda-y in a sense, right? They play... Because they... I guess a part of it is that you did a good job with their design and everything, so they kind of feel very at home in a Zelda game, and also they play a part of something that is quite implied, right? Because the games, they talk about sages, and a natural, I would say, a very natural conclusion or implication of that is like, okay, but these sages, there must have been at some point the first sages, yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's a very natural idea to have when you meet, you in Ocarina of Time at least, when they talk about the forest sage, you're like, okay, so Saria is the forest sage, but where did this all start? Where
You're never going to get an answer where it started.
But that's why the First Sages kind of can play that role, because that's a very natural question to ask. Like, what are the medallions? What really are the nature of sages? When did this start, right? This cycle of finding a sage or awakening as a sage. Like, that's why I feel the first stages kind of feel very at home, despite being OCs. Like, OCs are not necessarily a bad thing. I think OCs can really help to flesh
I
out
mean,
the world,
Hylia's an OC.
Yeah.
And she's quote unquote part of Canon, and she's an OC. She was made by a guy who was who was basically a child when the first few Zelda games were made. So, yeah, she's an OC.
Casually breaking the cosmology as you do.
Yeah, Groose is an OC. Most of the cast of Skyward Sword is an OC. Even Twilight Princess, Midna's an OC.
Yeah, I guess extension. Another question I saw in the chat from Luke is the Kokiri Soulcari's arc before the Aghanim blah blah.
Yes.
Yeah, tutorial pretty much.
That was Deox convinced me to do that. It was the other way around. The last time you and I spoke before the other day, I think that's when you convinced me that all the Kokiri Forest stuff, it should all be before Link even goes out into Hyrule. It's like I guess his Link's origin story, for lack of a better term, is wacky adventure with the evil Korok lady in the forest.
The thing is, I think the forest, first of all, the setting is very fitting for the beginning of a game and a story, right? Before you venture out into the bigger world, and then also it's a homage to Ocarina of Time and other Zelda games.
That's why I liked it, because Ocarina of Time, when I think about it, Ocarina of Time, it is kind of a strange, like the kind of I guess the archetype thing is the same. It's some kid living in this nowhere village that gets caught up. Like that's in A Link to the Past. That's in Twilight Princess. But like the interesting thing though, that the difference in Ocarina of Time is like in A Link to the Past and Twilight Princess, the place he's from is portrayed as like very normal. Like it's this little farming community. But the Kokiri Fort, like he's like in this weird place so far from anything, and he's basically being raised by a talking magical tree and forest spirits that are immortal. Like, it's a very strange origin. Like, it's a very strange place for like him to come from.
The funny thing is that
and I like it because it's so strange.
Yeah, and the funny thing is when you play the game, it's like they don't immediately tell you how weird it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you put it together as you start to find out more about the Kokiri.
And the thing is, even funnier thing is, once you exit the Kokiri Forest and you actually get it out into Hyrule Field, you kind of realize like, hey, that place was weird because this is normal, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that it's weird that you start in a very strange place, and as you adventure, you get to a more normal place. It's very interesting. I can't think of many other stories that have that, where it starts in the weird, strange place, and then the main character basically ventures into the normal place.
Yeah.
I can't think of one story. It's actually the story of St. Christopher, which, Link does turn into a dog wolf in one game. I can see a connection between him and St. Christopher, but anyway.
The thing is, someone mentioned that, living in the sky is weird, but it's all about the framing, right? Because the reason why if the Kokiri Forest was the norm in Hyrule, then it wouldn't be weird. It's that kind of like how it, when you start the game, it's very easy to think like, this is just like this kind of fairy tale sort of setting, but the rest of Hyrule isn't like that.
Yeah, a lot of people in Ocarina of Time don't even believe in fairies, which is something people seem to forget about. Like, they're genuinely surprised when they encounter Link and he's got, like, a little fairy.
Yeah, like, if the rest of Hyrule was kind of similar to the Kokiri Forest, then the thing is, weirdness is just... Things are weird when there's my English is failing me.
It's okay. Take your time.
Something is considered weird when it sticks out, right? And if the entire setting is weird, then the weirdness becomes normal. A good example of this is something like Morrowind, where the setting is super weird and alien, but as you play the game, it starts to become normal, and seeing an Imperial fort is suddenly the new weird, because you have been accustomed to giant carapace buildings and mushrooms. So seeing a brick tower is suddenly kind of weird because it sticks out. So it's all about how it sticks out, and the Coherent Forest really sticks out, and it's not very apparent in the beginning of the game. It's just kind of when you actually go out into the wider world and you realize, oh yeah, this place was kind of weird.
Yeah, him starting in the Kokiri Forest, it would be like the story of King Arthur. Like he starts out in like the magical like weird island. Like he starts out on the island of Avalon. Like
Yeah,
what?
I was about to say.
That's like such a weird place, and then he ventures out into the British Isles, and yeah, that's kind of like the comparison I'm thinking of. Or like in Star Wars, if like Luke Skywalker like started out on Dagobah, like it'd be really weird, a really weird place to start. And I like it. I like the fact that Link starts in such a weird place in relation to the center in Ocarina of Time, and I'm doing that in Hyrule Conquest also.
Yeah. I really like that. It's like that in Hyrule Conquest. Like the forest is weird, man. Like we've talked about it before. Like especially now, the thing is the setting. After the reboot, the setting is more loose and abstract in a ways. It's more mystical, but the forest is weird, man. Well, it's and I like it because that's the one thing that Zelda has been consistent about is that the forest is a weird place.
Yeah, ever since the very first game, it was the weirdest location.
It's like the world obviously the world outside of the forest is weird in other ways, but not to the degree of the Great Forest.
No, I like the forest. Even in real life, I like the forest, even though it's freaking dangerous as hell.
Yeah, and we talked about this. If you look at the map, like the forest is huge, and it gets weirder and weirder the further from the center you go. So, yeah, it's very fitting. It's gonna be such a contrast, right? When you finish the first arc and you're like, "Hey, I'm suddenly in a normal medieval setting. What happened?"
Well, yeah, from Link's perspective, when he finally goes into Hyrule Castletown with Zelda, it's like, yeah, to him it's all weird, but yeah, to most people, it'll be like, oh, he's like in normal civilization now. But
yeah,
that's the thing is like if you're raised like out in the middle of the freaking forest, like normal civilization would seem just like mystical and magical to you. All these buildings everywhere, all these huge castles, it would be like a fantasy from your perspective. And although in Nephi canon, Link probably does have some vague memory of all that stuff, so it might not be that crazy from his perspective. But anyway, I don't even remember what question I was answering with that, but I hope I answered whoever's question that was. Oh, I remember what the question was. Someone was asking if the Silcaris stuff was before Agnim. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Like, yeah, the kind of I think we talked about this, but like later on, the Aghanim arc is like the catalyst for, I guess, the overarching story. Like Neff said, that most of the arcs are more self-contained, but Aghanim really is the catalyst for.
Yeah, it kind of sets everything. It's like the powder keg that blows up, and then everything else. Yeah.
Kind of follows suit. Yeah.
Yeah, all this stuff with Silcaris, at least at the moment, like if that never happened, then probably everything that happens after would still happen anyway. It seems kind of isolated.
Yeah.
It's like a self-contained kind of origin of, I guess, Link. I guess by extension Saria, because she's probably going to become a sage by the end of that.
Yeah.
And Mido too. So just like Kokiri in general, I guess. But anyway,
it's not completely irrelevant because it does set up the background for the world in a way. Like, even though you don't get the full context, you kind of understand that, okay, there's something, this world has some history, right, that kind of led to this, in a way. And it kind of builds up that there's more going on, or there has been a lot of stuff going on in the past, right? And now the things are starting to move again. I guess Zelda kind of represents, when she awakens, that's kind of what she represents.
I totally know how to actually make it relate to everything that happens after, but I don't know if I want to talk about it on stream.
Yeah,
so I know exactly how now, but let's make a mental note of that, and I'll run it by you briefly after the live stream's done.
The funny thing is, talking about it, I had a few things.
I know, like, okay, yeah. Anyway, Actually, let me type this down because I'm definitely gonna forget about it, especially if we go on for longer than 10 minutes. Let me make a little note. Okay, I made a note of that, so hopefully I won't forget. All right, anyway, let's look for some more questions. I guess we'll just answer questions for. How are you like wiped out? How long do you think you can go on for?
How long have we been going on? I don't know.
A minute under 2 hours.
Yeah, okay,
Which is about the amount of time I wanted to do the live stream for, so maybe like 15 minutes of questions and then then like 45 minutes after we could talk about some of the stuff, or or do you need to go?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. No. So we'll answer questions for like 15 minutes then. 15, 20 minutes. All right. I'll let you pick out the questions then, so that I don't just get bogged down with all of them.
Let me see if there's something interesting. I'm an asshole, so I only picked the interesting question. No, I'm kidding.
I'll browse through to see if I see one that's particularly interesting. Normally, I just answer all of them in order, but like, yeah, I should do more of these Q&A streams, even just like by myself. Like a few months ago, I did one of these by myself for like 2 hours, and it ended up actually being a pretty. I thought it was gonna be a disaster because I thought like no one was gonna show up and like no one answered questions, but it was like 2 hours nonstop of people asking questions, and it was a pretty good live stream.
I guess this is not like a specific question, but it's something I picked up throughout while we've been streaming. Again, I think it's just kind of something we have to kind of clarify over some time, but yeah. So a lot of the old cinematics, while cool and not certainly completely irrelevant, the setting did actually get completely rebooted for Hyrule Conquest like a year ago, I think. So.
Actually, well, it's more like 2 years, actually.
Yeah. So, like, a lot of the plot threads you might see in the cinemas, I still compel people to go and watch them because they're still really cool. And they kind of give you an introduction to a lot of, I would say, some themes in the story and characters, but the actual events in those, they're largely rendered non-canon as a result of the reboot. So, you know, there was that awesome stuff with highlight. I did see someone mention highlight. Like, a lot of the stuff is not going to happen now in the reboot. So keep that in mind. But I do understand it can be a bit confusing. But it's just something I think could be nice to remind people of. And I guess I still think so. A lot of people did ask me before I disappeared. A lot of people would message me like, "Why did the reboot happen?" And I've talked about it before. Mostly because
I feel like I've talked about it. We both have talked about it on a live stream like a year or two ago. Like
it kind of boils down to you were unhappy where it was going. You had worked on it for so long that a lot of the older, ideas were no longer, relevant to you, or you didn't like them anymore. And then it got to the point where it's actually easier because you would retcon stuff because you would be unhappy about it. Old ideas that have been established for 5 years, and then it got to the point where it was like, you know what? I kind of know what story I want to tell now. I'll just start from scratch.
Yeah, the main reason. There's several reasons. The main one is basically what you said, where most of the stuff I was doing was ideas from over 10 years ago, and it was new Zelda games were coming out every now and again, and I'd try to incorporate that stuff. And after 10 years of that process, all these things have been grafted on, and it was just kind of I think it was just too messy for my taste. And I'm fine with a little messiness, but it was too messy. And and like you said, in my mind, I'm like, I have an idea of how this could all work together better. And another reason was even without the whole reboot idea, like the visuals of my stuff was getting outdated, and I was gonna go back and remake all those cinematics anyway with all my new models and stuff. So even if there wasn't a reboot, there was this looming overhaul, at least visually, of everything. So I'm like, I'll just take the opportunity to just redo everything, like from ground zero, to put it in a negative, from nuke it all, and then with the ashes of ground zero, kind of redo it all.
I still think...
And keep what I liked and get rid of the things that I don't think worked.
And also, there's the meme that... And you actually do play into this meme there where you bomb you figure something out and then you bomb it like a year later.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, while that was true mostly in the past, the point that was kind of funny, it's less true now, I feel, because of the reboot. The setting is, since we kind of ironed out the details, sure, there's details changed, but that's kind of the nature of it. It's still really consistent, right? Like the cosmology and the larger geography and everything, it's remained pretty consistent.
Yeah, I don't think I've changed too much since I started rebooting things, but yeah, one of the other things is just I really realized that when I went back and rewatched like the Fallen Sage stuff, like there's just way too many characters. Like
Yeah.
there's just too many. Like not in the sense that there's too many characters in the game, more so that the particular storyline. Like I think the Fallen Sage had like what like I think I counted as like 18 main characters. Like that's way too many, even by like Tolkien standards.
The problem is that the Fallen Sage, while cool, it introduced so many character plot lines that it would be hell to resolve them later on, right?
I did a
Like,
George R. Martin.
Yes, you did. Like there were so many, and if you go back and watch them, again, I compel people that haven't to do so. You do notice it that a lot of things are introduced, and they're never resolved because they were reserved for later arcs. The problem is that it got to the point where you can kind of just watch that one arc, and you're like, how the hell is everything that's going to be resolved? I get yeah, but yeah, but I still think it was.
At least Sulcaris was actually resolved in that. That was the
Yeah.
like people
I mean,
were
that's
joking at the very end. It should like show like a single Goma like coming from like Sulcaris' corpse or whatever. No, she's dead after the Goma are dead after that, and it's probably going to be the case in new Nephi canon too. Like Sulcaris is just when she's dead, she's dead.
Actually, there's a question.
No, some people are really gone.
Yeah. There's a question I wanna answer, and it's from Demoko asking me about Codeman asking for dates, and I told him this shit ain't have dates anymore. It's a legend, bro.
I think there will be some dates, but
there will be some dates. But,
there will be some dates.
The thing is,
I think honestly, I feel like dates would be more useful, like for like me, just doing stuff out of the context of the game, like to help me keep track of when things are.
The thing is, I remember you when it first started. When we first started the idea of the reboot, and you were kind of like reluctant, like I want a huge span of time where nothing really happens because it adds the mystique. And I remember you were like reluctant to tell me because you would like I would read the fuck out, but I was actually really on par with it. And I told Cole, there's a reason why I conned the name the Interregnum for Aghanim, because it is what it is. It's like a huge span of time where nothing really of note happens, and people didn't really. There's no point keeping records. So the Interregnum, was it 1,000 years? Was it a couple of 100 years? No one really knows.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like it. It's good. It also
everything before all the Aghanim stuff, I don't want any specific dates, just vague, like, it was several lifetimes ago, things like that. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, I feel like that makes it better.
The thing is, it's not like I did make dates for the old canon. I had like freaking I was working on a freaking timeline where I had like I could pinpoint mistakes in in the passing of time, because I sat down and made an actual date for everything. So it's not impossible. The problem is, like, I don't think that's necessary to have internal consistency within the setting.
Because in the context of the story, like, the people themselves don't know. Like, like in my mind, I have an idea of relatively exact amount of time, like how long ago Gustav was like when Akala was around, like however many hundreds or thousands of years. In my mind, like, I have an idea, but like from the perspective of the Hylians, like, they don't know. It's like, oh, Ognum's been king for as long as I can remember. I don't know. No one teaches this history in our schools or liturgy or anything. Like, they probably have, like, folk stories of the Akalans and Gustav that have survived, but like, it's like a great example, the Iliad. Like, there's no date. We have no dates for when, if at all, like the Trojan War actually happened. Even at the time of, you know, all the different Greek peoples, they didn't have an idea of when, how long ago it happened. It was a legend even 2,000 years ago, like in the time of all the different warring Greek states. Like,
the thing is, it's not the thing, and I'm guilty of this myself. When I, as someone that did study history, right, we are kind of shaped by modern perception. Of
yeah, all your post-enlightenment, you know.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I can look at the timeline and be like, 1,000 years, and they kind of hammer this down when you do study history. It's like, dude, 1,000 years. What is 1,000 years? Right?
A full lifetime.
I say it so casually, but the amount of things that happen in 1,000 years in Europe, for example, they're so immense that it's even hard for me to articulate what that really entails. Like, our understanding of time is very much shaped by, again, yeah, like I said, a post-enlightenment sort of look on the past without really understanding the extent of what that means. And in a context of a culture that does not have this sort of, you know, historiography, 1,000 years might as well be the beginning of time.
That's why I always joke with people, and they're like, you know, they're like, do you really think like the Earth is only like 7,000 years old? And I'm like, probably, because human memory just barely even gets to 7,000 years. There's probably younger. Because human memory doesn't even go back that far.
Yeah.
They're always joke that like, oh yeah, the dinosaurs existed, but the Earth is... Yeah, I like to joke around, because human consciousness is... Yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm going off of my weird, simple tangent. I'm going to stop before I do that.
No, but like, in terms of dates, sure, I haven't... And like Neff said, we've talked about it briefly, like, I have an internal, like, track record of when stuff happened and when people are born and all that stuff, but the thing is, it's not really relevant within the story. And the problem is, here's the other issue, and this is kind of the asshole of me issue. If I start kind of, telling people all these dates, people are going to notice discrepancies. And it actually hurts the writing more than just not telling anyone. That's another problem. And like, even great authors do this all the time, where an author can't keep track of all the time, because it's super hard, right? When you just like keeping track of like a couple of hundred characters when they were born and what they were doing in the last 10 years, it gets super convoluted after a while.
Yeah, although yeah, I actually see someone in the comments saying that we might not have the time of the Iliad, but we do have the place. Well, the Hylians know where Akala was too. Like, the Hylians have the place, even though they don't have the time.
Like, I'm sure there is like an understanding of, the distant past, but it's very fragmented, and it doesn't really... They don't have an understanding of how long it's been. Like, for them, ancient is synonymous with whatever you want to make of it.
Before I was born.
Yeah. Before my grandfather, essentially.
I mean, there's people now who, like, don't even remember the 90s when I was alive, and they talk about it like it didn't exist. I'm like, I was there. Like, this stuff happened in the night. Like, I guess it's one of those things you kind of start to realize when you get older, like when you've been alive significantly longer than like the current generation, and they talk about the time you were alive as like some weird thing that might not have even existed. And then you think about like, wow, there's that, but like times an indefinite number before me, like it kind of gives you this. Yeah, I don't know how to put it into words, like this feeling about history that... Anyway. Alright, I don't know, maybe we should move on to another question.
Yeah. Let's see, is there anything?
I see someone asking if new Zelda characters are OCs and what makes them more appropriate than your OCs. I think I kind of answered that. It's because Nintendo has the legal authority to say if something's official or not. I guess that would be the difference. Really is the difference. Really is if you believe Nintendo, the abstract corporation, has authority, then that's the thing that's the difference.
I think more like it's the sad truth that, let's say you write an original story, or no, actually no, let me make it more concrete than that. Let's say you write a fan fiction of a game you really like, right? And you introduce your OCs, and they might be very well written OCs, right? I'm not saying like they're the standard fan fiction-y, yeah, half angel, but quarter demon sort of OCs. But they're
Quarter
actually
demon,
very
half angel.
yeah. But they're incredibly compelling OCs and well written, right? But you still, since it's the fan fiction, you still use the quote unquote official characters in your writing. There's a large likelihood that people are going to care about the official characters more than your OCs, and that's just kind of the sad truth about it. I'm not saying that's a rule, and obviously some people, they just don't care about that. They just, as we've seen in Hyrule Conquest, a lot of OCs had fans that people cared about. Because they were well written and interesting. But general rule is people find that if it has that sort of, I guess, brand recognition, they're more immediately more likable.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about it. A great example of a series that actually used fan stuff is Star Trek. And now I'm going off in a really nerdy land, but some people don't realize that in the Next Generation, like each season, like a quarter of the scripts were all submitted by fans. And a lot of the characters, their OC's Donut Steel in those episodes.
Yeah.
Star Trek was very, very friendly to fan stuff back in the day. Not anymore. They tried to sue that fan movie several years ago. The Axanar movie or whatever. But yeah, back in the early 90s, actually, here's a fun little bit of information. There's an episode of The Next Generation when they bring back Scotty from the old 60s show. And they wanted to do a scene in the holodeck where they go back onto the original, the bridge of the original Enterprise in the holodeck, but the set didn't exist anymore. And they were gonna be like, it'd be too expensive for us to make this whole set of the bridge for one episode, so they're gonna scrap the scene. But someone who worked for them knew a fan who had parts of the original set that he found like rotting in someone's backyard in Ohio for like 20 years, who'd rebuilt most of the set of the original bridge, and he contacted him, and he's like, oh yeah, you guys can totally use this. And this fan that had just found these abandoned sets like 20 years ago and restored them, he brought them all in, and they filmed probably one of the best scenes like in any Star Trek episode I can think of, because a fan he loved that old show so much, and he found those parts of the set and restored them, and they were able to partially, they didn't have the whole set, so they had to partially recreate parts of the set and use green screens and stuff. But the captain's chair and the consoles, it was because of a fan. That really great scene from that one episode would have never happened if it wasn't for an unpaid fan, like, that just happened to preserved old sets. Like,
that's super awesome.
And it's just completely opposite of like the mentality now. Like, these people were made a full Star Trek movie a few years ago with a $2 million budget, with some of the actors from the Enterprise show, and it looked great. And CBS just fucking sued them instead of being like, oh, this is cool. Like CBS could advertise it and maybe run it on their channel or whatever, and get in on it. But they're like, no, we're gonna fucking destroy this. It's really depressing. Like, especially with Star Trek, because that was a thing that like it was so supportive of fans like 30 years ago, and it's like the opposite now, so it's depressing. Anyway, I don't even remember what the question was. Something about time and dates, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my answer to dates in Hyrule, is Star Trek fans from 30 years ago preserving old sets. Anyway. Maybe do you want to do one more question and we can wrap it up, or?
Sure.
All right, I'll let you pick the last question then. I'm not picking any questions today. I'm being lazy today.
You're lazy. Who has the best shark teeth? Sola, Linearisora, or Dominion Sora? That's a very, very
Who's the
interesting
best?
question.
Mifa has the best shark teeth.
Yeah, the greatest. Chiseled by the high artisan of the Dominion himself. You know, that should be like a world building point that they have like teeth chiselers.
Teeth chiselers, yeah. Like that's why they use silver.
It's like they have naturally sharp teeth, but it's like a beauty ideal to have the sharpest teeth, right? So
No, that's a great idea. I feel like that could add a little bit of character. Like Mifa has like her little teeth sharpener thing. I think that'd be kind of cute, actually.
Yeah, it's like a Dominion thing. Yeah, because the Dominion
Yeah,
is all about that
speaking of
wacky
Star Trek,
beauty.
it's like the Ferengi and their teeth sharpeners.
It's like it's like a status thing. Like I can offer to get my teeth chiseled.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, whoever came up with that idea, was that you that came up with that, or was that the person asking the question?
I just came up with
Yeah,
it
that's a good idea. I think Mifa will carry around her little royal teeth sharpener. I think that, yeah. Yeah, I'm a little confused. Like at the start of the stream, everyone's like, "Why does she have sharp teeth?" And I'm like, "Have you seen any fan art of her at all? Like they always portray her with like sharp teeth."
I'm just proving that the best world building details you get them from asking Joe questions on the stream.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I guess that was the last question. Yeah, almost 2.5 hours, so that's pretty good. I like to hit about the 2 hour mark. That's always my goal. It was nice that EXO joined us too. I was not expecting him to be on today at all.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, we definitely should do this again. Hopefully sometime less than a year from now.
Yeah. No, I'd be open to do it sooner rather than later. But if we do it outside of holiday, then we just kind of have to plan it a bit.
Yeah.
I think maybe
we're not gonna do this for another year. We're not. It's not gonna happen for another year. This happens every time we start doing live streams. They're like, yeah, we're gonna do it every week, and they're like, once a month, and then it ends up like being a year before we do that. It's gonna be. We'll see you guys next year. We'll have Deox packs next Easter.
The funny thing is, we've been doing streams and lore discussion like this for I would say 4 years.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years. About that.
Funnily enough, we were rather consistent for quite a while. Sure, there would be a few months between, but they were rather frequent.
Yeah, back in like 2019, I think it was, we were doing it every weekend for about a month or two, and then it kind of became a monthly thing, and then the thing is, I get burned out too. It's not even just like us having issues because of our time zones and stuff, like getting into contact with I am not a social person at all. I don't like talking, and I get worn out like after talking so much. So I get burned out.
I used to be one that could talk for hours, but not anymore. I think I don't know. I'm growing more and more antisocial as I age. Now, but in my case, it's a meme, but the past year, I would say, I've been kind of extraordinary for me in terms of my real life and everything. So, kind of interfering with everything. It's not limited to Hyrule Conquest, and I would really want to be more active again. Hopefully, things.
I'd love to be more active because people seem to like it when I am.
Yeah.
Which. Actually, there's one last question that I think I'll answer because it is related. Demoko's asking, are we going to do a monthly stream format like Mr. Medicare? No, but I am going to be like Mr. Medicare and say that I'm going to do it every month, but I do it like once a year. I don't know who else is aware of Mr. Medicare, but that's probably what's going to happen. I'm going to be like, I'm going to do it every month, and then after a month or two, I'm just going to do it once a year.
The thing is, like you said, if you do it too frequently, you run out of energy, and also we did end up on that where we almost ran out of topics that were related. Like we can talk about whatever for hours and hours, right? But eventually you run out of productive conversation topics for us an audience, and then you just kind of start rambling about stuff that was unrelated. I remember that one stream we did. It was me, you, Exo, and Adam, I believe, and it kind of just divulged into us ranting about video games or something for like 3 hours.
Was that the E3 one from a few years ago?
It might be, yeah. It was super. I had a great time, but it was completely unrelated to anything.
Yeah.
It was great though.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
I should find time to bring Adam back on. He's more into the Star Fox stuff. He's not really interested in Hyrule Conquest at all. He's more interested in the Star Fox stuff. But I don't know. Like I said earlier, I might actually have Still Ellis like on sometime in the future. Take it with a huge grain of salt, though. I'm making no promises, but that'll be awesome if that happens.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Nothing more to say, so I guess we can wrap it up.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Deox and I are probably going to talk for 20 minutes, and then he'll pass out, and I'll starve and go get something to eat.
After we finish, I'll eat something and go back to Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I'll play. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I am ending the stream right now. See you guys.